It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. I'll first ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll go to delegations. Please be advised, in accordance with Council's procedural bylaw, no decision will be made today on the delegation. The committee will do one of the following: A, refer the matter to staff for a report; B, refer the matter to a future budget deliberation; or C, take no action. So at this point, I'll go to C1 and welcome Southern Georgian Bay Airboat Rescue Initiative. Good morning, and it's all yours. I think, will they use the microphone there, Allison? Yeah. Thanks.
Southern Georgian Bay Airboat Rescue was born on the conviction that no one should go without the care that could save their lives, motivated to change emergency care for the people who need it. Our Southern Georgian Bay firefighters have the hands that heal and the hearts that reassure in any emergency crisis. I'm Chrissy.
And I'm Sherelle.
And we're Southern Georgian Bay Airboat Rescue Initiative.
We're fundraising to get a rescue boat that will be in operation on Georgian Bay 365 days of a year.
That means for all 4 seasons, like fall,
winter,
spring,
summer.
Because sorry, next slide. Next slide. Next one. Next one. There we go. Is it easier if I just kind of gesture? Yeah. Because if you call out for 911 and you're not only a couple hundred feet offshore, our fire departments just don't have the right resources to come out and get you.
This rescue boat is going to be a game changer for our first responders and for Georgian Bay.
This boat will be equipped with one powerful motor.
This will drastically change our response time.
It will be outfitted to try and make as many saves as possible. This thing will be equipped with a thermal camera, navigation equipment, and a heated cabin. That's just a few.
So we'll be able to locate the patient, get them out of the elements, and give them treatment right away.
This rescue boat will be able to go over land, broken ice, on top of ice, through the water, and withstand 3-meter waves. This is not your typical average flat bottom boat, nor is it a hovercraft. This craft has inflatable cylinders with scale-like shield that will help protect it from any punctures. These cylinders help to provide a more cushioned ride and a smoother transition to any terrains we throw at it.
Let's give you some scenarios. Maybe it's a nice summer day and Grandpa and his grandson are out fishing and they're in a situation where Grandpa needs medical assistance.
Heck yeah, we're coming. Maybe it's little Timmy and his friends Susie and Jeannie that are lost out in the bay in their canoe.
Is that even a question? Heck yeah, we're coming. Maybe it's John and his family and they found themselves in a snowmobile or a boat accident.
Maybe it's your family or friends that are in a summer cottage on an island and need medical treatment.
So, Chrissy, I think they need to hear what this really means.
Our firefighters are the heroes of our communities. They have the determination. We can't go back and change the beginning, but we can start where we are and change the ending.
They have the strength. One day they will tell their story of how they overcame what they went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide.
Our firefighters, they will never stop. Because we respond to medical, fire, disabled boaters, disabled snowmobiles, and lost individuals. We will respond to anything a fire truck would normally respond to on land, except now we will have the opportunity to respond to them.
Regardless of what your situation is and you need emergency assistance, you can call on Tay.
Because with our reciprocal agreements already in place, we will come out and assist our other neighboring communities that sit on Georgian Bay.
Well, Chrissy, I gotta ask because this question comes up all the time. Where is the rescue boat going to be housed?
Like we said, This rescue boat can go over all kinds of terrains. It doesn't need boat launch. This rescue boat will be sitting on a trailer hooked up to our rescue truck in Station 5, Victoria Harbor, ready to respond. We will continue to evaluate our response time at all times to make sure we are providing the service that Southern Georgian Bay expects.
The likelihood of more water and ice-related incidents only elevates with increased lake use. Our communities are only growing.
Bay Fire Department will be ready to respond and ready to help and ready to assist. This initiative was built by the community for the community.
In the last 22 months, we've raised over $250,000.
That's from us just kicking the pavement with our handmade bracelets, swag, and kind-hearted people like you donating.
From a single airboat to highly skilled firefighters providing care on the water, on ice, and onto the ground, we are shaping the future of critical care by keeping our firefighters safe while they are saving lives of our communities on Georgian Bay.
What will you say when they ask you for help?
Unite with your community.
Your communities have already pulled in $250,000, and now we are coming to the people that can make a huge impact on the safety of our communities together. We are asking you for $25,000, and that is only $1.57 to keep every one of your residents safe. They have shown that they are here for you and each other. Are you willing to be there for them?
The mission, the answer, and we're coming for you.
Questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I'll open up for the committee for any questions or comments. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Have you had any corporate sponsors?
So not really, to answer your question. We have had BMR Pro,
right,
in Elmville. They've done 20,000. We've also had Midland Rotary,
right,
and Armin in
right.
Honey Harbor,
Right.
Severn. Yeah. Other than that, it's been us kicking the
Yep.
pavement, and
I know that, yeah, but
yeah.
Because I would, no offense, I was thinking maybe somebody like Bombardier or the Snowmobile Federation or even the Cottagers Associations. They have a whole FOCA, Federation of Cottagers Association, those types of things. I'm just giving you some other ideas because for us, I mean, it's probably something that we'd have to refer to our budget for, because at this time, it's the end of the year and we're looking at next year. But, those are other ones that might be ideas for you, or, if any of us know anybody who happens to have a business that's profitable, we could send them to you. But I thank you very much. I know you've been working hard, Sherelle. And
A soft introduction to any of those contacts would be amazing.
okay. Thank you very much.
And just also, when we started this initiative, we were starting it when the world was going through a hiatus. And so, as we all know, businesses were struggling at that point in time. So we knew that we had to be innovative and pivot. I'm a business owner myself, and as much as I would love to give out and hand out and help, a lot of businesses we were getting, unfortunately, it's just not in the financial budget.
But
right now.
I was thinking of the big businesses, because they're definitely not suffering like small businesses. You know where I'm going, like Canadian Tire, those types of businesses that are corporations. That's where I'm going with it, because I know small businesses are having a tough time.
So another thing is Tim Hortons in Port Severn and Wabashine. They are doing a new holiday cookie. So they are actually in November are going to be giving us the proceeds of their holiday cookies. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks a lot, girls. And, good luck, and thank you for doing all you've done.
Thank you. I'll pass over to Member Burkett.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you for the presentation. Well done. Have you got a picture of this boat or whatever it is? Do you have a picture of it?
So not right at this moment, because we yeah. So as you know, I'm sure you know, we had to pivot due to the war between Ukraine and Russia. So before we started, the war hadn't broken out, and we were going to be getting it was called a sever that was coming out of Saskatchewan. So we recently had to pivot that, and we, from the grace of God, I don't know, but this man named Oleg came along, and he's actually Ukrainian, and he has a business that sits right on Georgian Bay, and he builds a smaller version of these because the main thing was to get the bottom, which with the cylinders, inflatable cylinders. So he's actually going to be building large ones, and our rescue boat is going to be the flagship of the company. So it's going to go down in history, and there's already tons of fire departments that are watching us, seeing how this turns out.
Supplementary through the chair, if I may. So this, like with the amount of swamps we have in our townships, you're saying that you can unload it at a road, go down a trail as long as there's no trees, get to the swamp, and just continue on.
Yes. Yep. So any terrain that you throw at it, we'll be able to, we can do. Yep.
Any other comments or questions? So I think if we perhaps have a motion, Allison, to refer this to budget. Oh yeah, I guess a staff report first, asking our chief for his comments, and then we can go from there.
Okay, the motion then reads that the delegation by the Southern Georgian Bay Airboat Rescue Initiative regarding a request for funding for 2024 be received and referred for a staff report at this time.
Can we have a mover for that, please? Moved by member Minning, second by member Brennan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a great day.
You guys were
Well done. Good job.
I think we did. All right. Wasn't too inconvenient. I don't have a copy of what this showing.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull out of the consent agenda? Member Cox. Oh. Member Burkett.
Thank you. Through the chair, 1.8, please.
And Member Minnings has your hand up.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just looking at my agenda. It is the Hope D 2.4. Thank you.
Okay, if that's it, thank you. If do we have a motion to adopt the Deputy Mayor? Oh, D 1.3, member Cox would like that pulled as well. Okay, if we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Certainly, motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items with the exception of item number D 1.3, D 1.8, and D 2.4.
Okay, we moved by member Cox, second by member McIntyre. All in favor? Carried. Now we're going to jump through the agenda and go to F 3.1. Presentation from Baker Tilly Auditors, 2022 financial statement. So we'll let Allison connect us there.
I believe we have Joanna here from Baker Tilly. She's just up on your screen. So
I am. Thank you very much for having me. Allison, will you be sharing my presentation?
I can. Give me one moment here.
Perfect. Sorry, I meant to message you. Thank you very much for moving me up in the agenda. Greatly appreciated.
Good morning, Jennifer. Welcome.
Joanna.
Oh, Joanna, sorry. What do you call Madam CEO.
Sorry, I just wanted to let both Joanna and the committee know that the Director of Finance had a family emergency this morning. So that's you would normally expect him to see him for this, but he's unable to join us.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll pass it over to Joanna.
Thank you very much for having me. I'll just wait till the presentation is up so you can see it. I know just in the meantime, in your packages, you have our financial statements, the audited financial statements for the year 2022, as well as a letter from us stating how the audit went. And the presentation is really a summary of both items there. So but I'm happy, of course, to address any questions that come out of the other two documents as well. Thanks very much, Allison. If we move to the next slide, what we've done here, and this is similar to what we've done in the past, but I know we have new council members here. Instead of reproducing the entire auditor's report, it is 2 pages long and attached to the financial statements. We've reproduced here the most important paragraph of the auditor's report, and you'll see it in the second paragraph, and it's our opinion. And it says, in our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the township at December 31st, 2022. And it does make note that they are in accordance with the Canadian public sector accounting standards, which you as a municipality have to abide by. It does talk about consolidated financial statements as well, and that's because not only are these the results of the township, but they're also consolidated with the results of the library as well. So that is a clean auditor's opinion, and that's what you would expect to see as council members. The following slide we go through, we're required to tell council what we do as part of our audit. So we review council minutes, the open and closed sessions, to make sure that anything that is related financially is reflected in your financial statements as applicable. We do lots of testing, we do random sampling, we look at it, we do analytical review, and we look at management's estimates to make sure that they are reasonable. We look at your main systems, the money coming in, the money coming out. We look at the related controls, and if we had any recommendations on the controls, we would bring those forward to management at the time, but we don't for this year. The audit is complete pending council's approval of the financial statements, and then we ask management to sign a representation letter to state that they provided us everything that we need to do the audit. We also have send out legal letters or legal confirmations to your lawyers to ensure that there's no outstanding issues that should be reflected one way or another in the financial statements. We had no difficulties, you can cross that word significant out of there, no difficulties encountered during the course of the audit, no changes to our initial audit plan, and no disagreements or difficulties with management as we've come to expect, and excellent cooperation, just getting the information back and forth. And we didn't have any uncorrected audit differences either. So then we get into the numbers, and what we've done is we've taken kind of the different segments of the financial statements so that you're not looking at all the, a lot of numbers all at once, but we do show a 5-year comparison just so that you can see the trend over the last 5 years. You can see your cash is up significantly in 2022 compared to the prior years, and that's because you have more money in your bank accounts at the end of the year from the obligatory reserve fund, so the development charges, as well as reserves. So that causes the increase in cash at the end of the year. Your accounts receivable, the comparable in prior years, that's just the amounts owing. A lot of that is your water and sewer, as well as HST rebates. Your taxes receivable to just over $2 million. You had a few larger ones, but through our audit, we can see that management is right on top of that and have registered numerous properties for tax sale, or will be doing so in the current year right now. You do have some inventories for resale. That's also included prepaid expenses as well. So there was an increase in purchases for water meters during the year. So that's why you see the increase there. And then long-term receivables, that's your tile drainage loans. So those are owed to you by the property owners, but then you owe them back to the province. So in total, at the end of 2022, you have $43.8 million in revenue or in assets, which is a nice increase from the prior years. And then the following slide, we just do a graphical representation so you can see. You can slide ahead, Allison. Sorry, just to see the trends over the last 5 years, and obviously the biggest one being your cash amounts, and then everything else is rather quite small compared to your cash balances. The following slide, we look at your financial liabilities. The top one being your accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So amounts owing at the end of the year, and that's just timing of when invoices are due and when you receive them, and the projects that are outgoing at the end of the fiscal year. Your deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds, $9.5 million. This is where you see a lot of the increase in your cash, because this is amounts that have been received, and then you just have to, you can spend them in the future periods. So $6 million of that 9.5 is development charges. About $2.5 million is the Canada Community Building Fund, or previously known as gas tax funding. And then you have about $800,000 in there for recreational lands as well. Your other liabilities, that's subdivision deposits and other various deposits, $2.3 million. And then you have your long-term debt, just over $6 million. No change there, just decrease with the principal payments, but no new debts during the year. That gives you almost 21.6 million in financial liabilities. And then again, we see the graphical representation, the red one being the obligatory reserve funds, and you can see the significant balance there compared to the prior years. Then we look at your non-financial assets, and the only one you have is your tangible capital assets, being the assets that you're holding on and you're using as part of providing services to your ratepayers. $103 million. You had $7.7 million of purchases during the year, and only amortization of $4 million to give you that increase. And we'll see the additions during the year. But those, as a reminder, are the historical cost of your capital assets, not the fair value of those. So they are the historical cost less the depreciation or the expensing of the assets over their useful life. And when you take your net financial assets plus your tangible capital assets, you get your accumulated surplus of just under $126 million. And we'll see that further on in the slides as well. And I apologize on the next slide, it's a lot of numbers. The purpose of this slide, though, is to show you, we just talked about how you had a PSAB, or we look at the total revenues and the expenses, and you can see a PSAB budgeted surplus of almost $4 million, and an actual PSAB annual surplus of $8 million. And I know there'll be somebody sitting in the room going, well, we didn't budget for over a $3 million surplus. And that is correct. What the bottom half of this slide does is it shows the differences between how you budget, and you budget appropriately. There's nothing wrong with how you budget, but then how we have to reflect it in the financial statements. So things like purchase of capital assets, they are in your budget because you have to raise the funds for them, but they are not actual expenses in the financial statement. So you see them deducted, but then amortization being added back in, because in the financial statements we show amortization, whereas you don't show it in your budget. The other big differences are transfers to and from reserves. In your budget appropriately, they are shown as revenue and expenses, but they are not within your financial statements. So when we get to the bottom line and it comes to zero, that is in fact what your operating surplus is at the end of 2022, 2021, and in your budget.
Just we'll open it to the committee for any questions anytime, Joanna, but I'll ask that Member Burkett has a question.
Thank you, through the chair, to Joanna. I don't understand the PSAP annual surplus. Like, we budgeted $23 million and you've got a $3,369,000, but it's actually $8 million. Can you just explain that again? How we have a $5 million surplus? The difference is that maybe because of one of the road projects we didn't do? Is that why?
In this case, yes, that is the big difference, and we'll see the differences as we go through. If you look at the top line alone, your budgeted revenue was only 23.2 million, and your actual revenue was 26.9. And when we look at the revenue in detail, I'll be able to show you what the differences were there specifically.
Very supplementary, if I may. So the 26,000 is the actual tax, like that would be the taxes that the township collects. Is that what that is?
That's half of it. And the rest would be your user charges. So you used a lot of development charges this year, more than you had budgeted for. So that's part of the reason, as well as all your provincial funding and your other funding and your building permits, that kind of thing is all included in that 26.9.
So you're saying in the 26,975,000, that's taxation plus the other two things you mentioned? They're all incorporated in that same number.
through you, Mr. Chair, sorry. Yes, that is all the revenue that the township collected during 2022 and early.
All right, thank you.
Carry on there, Joanna. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The following slide just shows the relationship between your accumulated surplus and how much of that has already been invested in capital assets. So you'll see that your accumulated surplus is higher than the amount of invested in capital assets, which is great because that means the difference really is your reserves netted with any debt you have as well. So it's been very consistent over the years. And then the following slide, which one of your members there was commenting on, was the difference between your total revenue and your total expenses, and then the gray being your annual PSAB surplus, again, just showing the trend that normally you've had more revenues than expenses, and a lot of that will be created by grants that are for capital because they don't have the offsetting expense at the time. The expense will come over the useful life of those assets. And now we look at the revenue. So this is, as the mayor had mentioned, your budgeted total revenue was $23.2 million. The actual revenue was $26.9 million. So there was a large increase there. As I mentioned, taxation being the top line there, being pretty much half of your total revenue at almost $13.9 million. Your user fees and service charges, you had used more development charges, which is included in this line here. For the recreation expenses there, the capital project. So in total, your user charges were 6.2. Everything else in that category, when I went through the analysis, was very similar year over year as well as compared to budget. Your Government of Canada revenue, that's your Canada Community Building Fund or your gas tax funding. That's the amount that was spent. Your Province of Ontario, almost $2.8 million. 1.1 of that is your Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund or your OMPF funding. And then as well as you had money from OCIF as well as aggregate funding as well.
Member Cox has a question on that.
Sure.
User fee. Sorry, the user fees and service charges. You said recreation develop. What was? Can I ask what that was?
There was development charges used for the new community center or recreation center, I should say.
Go ahead, Devin.
It would be the development charges that we put towards the West Shore project.
Okay, so that's the one that sits there because we keep that in our budget line, right?
As we spend, so the work we did in 2022, we take out of the development charges, which goes into revenue.
Okay.
And we spend it on the project. So that's
okay.
in the revenue line.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Member Minnings.
Thank you. Hello, Joanna. In the penalties, interest, and investment income, I'm looking at the 2022 actuals of 1.1 million and compared to the 2021 actuals of 518,000. So that's more than 100% jump in revenue there. Could you break that down a little bit for me and let me know if from your professional opinion, you have any concerns and we should be looking at that more closely?
No, that is just, thank you, and through the chair. The big increase there is because of interest rates. So you were able to get a lot more money. You have a lot of money sitting in your cash account at the moment. And so you were able, because the interest rates rise from 2021 to 2022, just looking at it, the prior year you had 183,000 in investment income. And in 2022, you had just shy of 800,000. So it's all just, you had an increase in cash. So overall, you're going to get more interest income anyway. But then with the interest, the increase in the rates of interest, you were able to get more there too. So the actual penalties and interest on your taxes receivable account was pretty stable year over year. That rate doesn't change. It's really just your investment income.
Thank you. And I have one supplementary question, if I may. As we're getting close to budget time, and it will be my second run through with a budget, I'm wondering, and you do get to this later on, is that we have $40 million plus reserve fund or cash You said, in fact, earlier, cash is up significantly in 2022 to 40 million, a jump of almost 7 million from 2021. How would I interpret that when I'm going into budget discussions, especially related to potential tax increases or not from this township?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think the biggest, when you're looking at how much money you have, and that's the number one question I get when I present to councils is, you know, we have a lot of money in reserves. We have $25 million in reserves. Is that enough? And I think it really comes down to the asset management plan and determining what your needs are going to be over the next 5-10 years, and looking at that and making sure that you're going to have the funds there to be able to do those capital projects that you need to, especially if there isn't the government funding there to help you out with those. So that's the biggest thing. The one thing with the increase in cash, there is an increase in cash, but a lot of it has to do with the development charges you have on hand. And again, they're going to come into your asset management plan as, you know, which development charges you have, what you'll be able to use for future capital projects as well. So it's not an easy task, and I don't envy you for having to go through it, especially when you're on the relatively new side to it. But it really comes down to looking forward to see what you need down the road, as opposed to just the 1 year as well.
Okay, thank you. Another comment, Member Minnings? Or okay, carry on then, Joanna. Thanks.
Sure. The other items on the revenue page here, you get funding from other municipalities, just a little bit there for the boards. We talked about the penalties and interest and investment income. Your licenses, permits, and other, that's the other big jump there. And that's the other included in there is you sold a vacant piece of property and you had a large gain on sale of that. So that was $624,000 within that 1.4 million on the second last line there. And then you had a little bit of contributed assets for land and site improvements related to subdivision, so $791,000 there, to give you that total revenue of just under $27 million. And the following slide just shows the pie chart, just where you're getting your revenue from. So just over half being from taxation and 23% from user fees and service charges. The following slide shows the expenses, and we're required under the public sector accounting standards to show expenses two ways. This is the first way, by more type of department. So the one thing to remember, that these expenses don't include any capital projects. They only include the amortization. So the actual full capital expenses are not in here. It's just the amortization over the useful life. So in total, you had budgeted about $19.9 million and you came in about $18.9 million. Which overall in your total budgeting, you know, less than 100,000 under budget, that's pretty close when you're talking about just about $19 million there. The following slide just shows again the breakdown. So transportation being 30% of your expenses, 21% for environmental, 24% for protection. And if you're ever wondering what's in those categories, it is in the financial statements under segmented information as to what is in each of those categories. They are prescribed, I guess, if you will, by the ministry for the financial information return. The next type of expenses to show is more by type of expense. So salary and wages, materials, contracted services, and then you can see the amortization there too, being $4 million part of the almost $19 million in expenses. And again, we show the breakdown in the pie chart. 36% of your salaries and wages are wages, 23 of material, and 16 are contracted services when you're looking at your actual cash expenses. The next slide, we look at the accumulated surplus. So we talked about the almost $126 million accumulated surplus. 97.7 is of that 126 million is already invested in capital assets, and that's the net book value of your capital assets less the debt associated with those assets. And you do have small surpluses for your boards and other groups. Your police have a accumulated surplus of 101,000. You have a general area taxation 2,500. Your water works and sewer systems is a good one to kind of keep track of. It's sitting at accumulated surplus of $2.4 million, an increase, an in-year surplus of $424,000. So that's segregated out so that it can fund itself. And then you have the BIA as well as the library as well. And then the bottom half is your reserves. So it was 21.7 million in 2021. It is increased to 25.5 million, an increase overall of 3.7 million. And that includes the transfer of your operating surplus, if you will, into reserves before the financial statement. So there was about $2.3 million transferred into reserves. And that gives you your accumulated surplus of almost 126 million. And then just looking at the trend over the years, a nice trend there to see that the reserves have been steady and a nice increase year over year into 2022. We look at the capital additions. There was $7.7 million in capital additions, a little bit in all the categories, if you will, lots in roads and bridges, almost $3.7 million. Your land and site improvements, that includes the land that was contributed, about 791,000 was contributed, but it still shows here as an addition. And then you have the work in the water and sewer systems as well as vehicles. And then the work in the buildings, $1.4 million. And then another snapshot to look at is just the overall, how much you're contributing in new additions to your capital assets versus how much is amortization. So the amortization is the blue, and that's the expensing of the historical cost of the assets. And it's good to make sure over, generally speaking, that you're replacing your assets at a greater rate than your amortization. Of course, assets and everything else are costing a lot more nowadays. So it's good to ensure you're doing that. And you can see by this chart that you definitely are replacing them at a greater rate. And then the following slide just is an overall snapshot of the amount of useful life you have left in your assets. The smallest amount remaining is your equipment, which of course some of the equipment you have has shorter useful life, so that would make sense. And the rest are all, on average, of course, more than 50% remaining of useful life. And the next slide just looks at the net financial assets. So your financial assets minus all your liabilities, and you see you're pretty steady there, 2018 to 2021. And then with the increase in cash and the amount sitting there in your bank accounts and the increase in your reserves, therefore, a big increase there in 2022. And that is the end of my presentation. Are there any questions, any other questions?
I'll look to the committee there. Member Minnings has her sign up.
Thank you, Joanna. Could you go back to the last slide, or I guess Allison? Yes. So could you explain to me again the 2022 amount of 22 million? And that says net financial assets. How is that compared to the 40 million in surplus? So where is it a standalone number and chart that I'm seeing?
No, so what this number represents through you, Mr. Chair, this is the $22.2 million is your financial asset. So your cash, your taxes receivable, your accounts receivable, less all your liabilities. So less your accounts payable, any other liabilities you have, your deferred revenue, as well as your long-term debt. So in total, your total cash had gone up significantly, as we've talked, 7 million. So that pretty much is the reason for that large increase, less though the increase in your development charges. So they kind of net out because we're looking at both sides there. So the big portion of the reason for that is the increase in cash that essentially has gone into your reserves.
Thank you.
Okay, Joanna, I had a question on the revenue slide. Licenses and permit up 800,000 year over year. Can you just recapture is that building permits or what is in that number there?
A lot of the reason for that increase is the building permits.
That's what I thought it was. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah. So in the licenses, permits, and the other thing, the other big item that's in there, so about 767,000 of that is licenses, permits. The other that's in there that doesn't normally make a big difference is the gain on sale. So you sold vacant property during 2022, of which let me just turn to my notes, about 624,000
That's right.
was a yeah, so that was a gain. So that's included in that amount as well.
Okay, great. Any questions from the committee? A very good presentation. We liked it, and we have a motion from our clerk.
Okay, thank you. The motion reads that the presentation by Joanna Park at Baker Tilly with respect to the 2022 financial statements be received, and that the 2022 draft audited financial statements be approved, and further that the mayor and deputy mayor be authorized to sign the required letter.
Thank you. We have a mover on that. Moved by member Brennan, second by member McIntyre. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, we're going to go back onto the agenda. Section F, Planning and Development, and I have Brad and Katie's name on here. If who would like to speak to this, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and Committee. The first report from Planning and Development is for a deeming bylaw application for 3382 Ascona Avenue. The deeming bylaw application was brought forward as a result of a building permit application that was submitted for the construction of a single detached dwelling. Upon review of that building permit, it was confirmed by the township solicitor that the lands are comprised of two separately conveyable lots on a plan of subdivision, being lot 138 and north part lot 139 on plan of subdivision 811. Lots on a plan of subdivision will not merge even when held in common ownership. This means that the zoning provisions, for example, setbacks and lot coverage, apply to each lot individually. The Planning Act does allow for a council to pass a bylaw designating the plan or parts of that plan to no longer be a registered plan of subdivision and would allow for the lots to merge. Plan 811 was registered in 1937, which does make it eligible to be deemed. The lands are zoned and designated appropriately for residential uses. And although the lands are located within a settlement area where growth and development are encouraged, and this may result or appear to result in reduced densities, this is preferred as the part lot is of smaller size, which would make it challenging to develop. There are no financial impacts associated with this application, as the applicant has provided the application fee and a legal deposit. And there's no anticipated change to taxation as a result either. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the committee? If not, I'll ask for a motion from the clerk.
Thank you. The motion reads that planning report number P23-029 dated September 27th, 2023, with respect to a deeming bylaw application for the lands described as lot 138, north part of lot 139, plan 811, known municipally as 3382 Ascona Avenue, be received, and that the deeming bylaw included as attachment 3 to planning report P23-029 be brought forward immediately. And further, that should council pass the deeming bylaw, the clerk be directed to provide a certified copy of the bylaw to the clerk of the county Simcoe per section 5026 of the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a mover for that? Moved by member Minnings, second by member Cox. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we'll move to F 1.2, housekeeping clarifications, and I have Brad and Katie as well to speak to that.
Thank you, Chair. As the committee is aware, a new fees and charges bylaw was passed earlier this year in April. After working with that bylaw for the last 5 months, there have been some minor housekeeping clarifications, which staff would recommend to the bylaw with respect to the planning fees and charges. This is to ensure that Planning Act applications and the costs of reviewing those are covered by the applicant and is not a burden on the tax base. The recommended clarifications include clarification that the fee for a resubmission both pre and post draft plan approval for plan of subdivision applications is charged, and also a clarification that the fee for resubmission of materials associated with a site plan control application are charged both pre and post conditional approval. Should the committee choose to endorse the staff recommendation, no impacts to planning revenues are anticipated. And should the committee choose not to endorse the staff recommendation, then planning revenues would be reduced and a burden on the existing tax base would be experienced. If the committee has any questions, happy to discuss. Thank you.
I had a question on the pre-consultant of 1,050, and it comes back, say there's 6 questions to be answered, and 5 out of 6 get answered, and it goes back to be reconsidered. Is that still covered under the first fee? Or do you have to reapply again?
Thank you, Chair. I believe that it would depend on what stage of pre-consultation that they're in. There's a stage 1 and a stage 2 pre-consultation. There's no changes to those fees proposed as a result of this report, though. Those are staying the same.
I thought it was a good opportunity to ask the question here. That's what just.
To the chair's question there. So if committee will recall, it was back in December, we launched this 2-stage pre-consultation, and that was a direct result of the province stating that if we don't approve applications or make a decision on other applications within a very small amount of time, we have to refund those fees. So instead, historically, what happened at the township and every other municipality is that someone would make a submission with an application fee, and then we would review that submission. It would be sent to, so for example, a submission for a site plan agreement or an official plan amendment or subdivision, something of that nature. They would submit all of their documentation, reports, studies, plans. Staff would review that, as well as our consulting engineer, our consulting environmental, perhaps a hydrogeologist, as well as agencies such as the Trans-Siberian Waterway, the Ministry of Transportation, CN Rail, we're dealing with on an application. All of those agencies, township peer reviewers would all review that submission and then provide comments back, provide feedback on the submission. Then the applicant would resubmit based on those comments, and that would be the cycle, likely 3, 4, 5, 6 times, depending on the quality of the submission. So basically all of that process is now front loaded ahead of the application, so that essentially we work through all of those comments before an application is submitted formally. That's the stage 1, stage 2 pre-consultation process. So I'm not sure if your question is about an application that has to go through that 2-stage pre-consultation, such as an official plan, a subdivision, etc. If it's a pre-consultation on something like a minor variance or consent that goes to the Committee of Adjustment, those are not mandatory pre-consultations. So sometimes people do come to us and they want to have a meeting before their application is submitted. And that's common because they don't want to waste the money, right, submitting the application if they are not going to be supportive or if they need additional information. So typically in those situations, there is some dialogue before the application is submitted, and that is included under that initial fee. Or if they didn't want a meeting, they just wanted a few questions answered before they submit their application, staff just do that as part of the process rather than doing the pre-consultation meeting. So it kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah, my question was more with the Committee of Adjustment. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Katie or Brad? If not, we have a motion, please.
Thank you. The motion reads that planning report number P23-028 dated September 27th, 2023 regarding a proposed housekeeping clarifications to planning fees, user fees and charges bylaw be received, and that Schedule A of bylaw 2023-35 be amended to reflect the change in planning fees as detailed in staff report P23-028.
Thank you. We have a mover for that, please. Moved by Member Brennan, second by Member Jansen. All in favor? It's carried. And we'll go to Public Works 2.1. Would Alex or Derek like to speak to this? I think it's Alex.
Thank you.
Good morning. So through the chair, staff received some correspondence from a resident regarding speeding concerns on St. Amant Road. And we completed a traffic study using the Black Cat radar. There's currently no posted speed limit on St. Amant Road, and the de facto speed limit for this section is 80 kilometers an hour, as dictated by the Ministry of Transportation. The results of the traffic study found that the 85th percentile for the speed was 88 kilometers an hour. Staff assessed this road section in accordance with the Transportation Association of Canada guidelines for establishing posted speed limits. And in conjunction with the guidelines, we recommend that the section of St. Amant Road between Quarry Road and Narrows Road be set to and posted at 60 kilometers an hour.
Okay, thank you for that. Any comments? I certainly would support it. And assuming it goes through, would Emily Barnett be advised of this as well? Okay, so we have a motion. Member Jansen.
I'd like to ask through the chair, was there any more complaints or just the one complaint that came forward?
Through the chair, as far as I'm aware, just the one complaint that came forward.
Yeah, okay. I can jump in. She actually was speaking on some of the neighbors as well.
I see. Okay, and just when you say the 85th percentile, we're traveling within 88 kilometers per hour. So that means some people were actually speeding, and that's why there was the speeding concerns. Or that 85 percentile means that the vast majority are traveling at the speed that's posted, or sorry, not posted, but it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So through the chair, so yeah, the 85th percentile. Yeah, so 85% of traffic users for the road were traveling at about, on average, 88 kilometers an hour. So they were above the unposted speed limit by 8 kilometers an hour. But yeah, sorry if that answers your question.
Okay, thanks. If we have a motion, then Madam Clerk.
The motion reads that Public Works Report number W23-036 dated September 27th, 2023, with respect to a speed limit review, St. Amant Road, be received. And further, that the speed limit on St. Amant Road between Quarry Road and Narrows Road be set to and posted at 60 kilometers an hour.
Thank you. We have a mover for that, please. Moved by Member Minnings, second by Member Brennan. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 2 points.
Thank you. And through the chair. So this, we're happy to announce that this project is actually out to tender. The project will be closing actually in 1 week from today. We did have a closure extension by 1 week as a result of some questions. But this report gives an update to where we're at, a bit of the history of Rhinebridge Street for a bit of a catch-up. It has been a long project. Starting with the removal and replacement of the bridge, morphing into the extension of a road to serve the 6 properties on Rhinebridge Street and eliminate the need for the vehicular bridge. So right now, the estimated project costs are approximately $1.1 million in construction and an additional contract administration fee, all within the $1.5 million approved budget for the 2023 capital year. We do know that the project will extend and spill into 24. We've given the opportunity for contractors to bid this in a way that maximizes efficiencies, gives opportunity for multiple mobilizations, and that will effectively reduce or hopefully control cost. So we're trying to obtain the best pricing by offering a long construction timing window. The deadline for completion is October 24. So that's the history of the project. Now we do have a discussion is what would we like to name the new road?
We'll open up to Member Cox.
I think that we should name it Rainbird Street because those people have had enough. And no offense, they have to change all their addresses and change everything else. And the Rainbird family was one of the original settlers in Coldwater. So that's just my opinion. And I've had them talk to me about how they would prefer not to have to change all their paperwork and everything. But I have a couple of questions.
Any comments on that request, Derek? And then Member Cox has some more.
Oh, through the chair, I think, you know, the name will be posted, you know, on the finishing of the works and confirmation today of what the name should be. We have lots of events where a road, you know, in a consistent fashion changes names, you know, midway through. We just have to make sure the signage is appropriate for EMS to and pizza delivery guys to be able to know where they are. To find Rhinebridge Street at the end of West Street would be a bit of a challenge, but certainly we can sign it as such.
Member Cox.
Yeah, and then I had a question from some of the residents about the bridge being a pedestrian style bridge, and how are we going to do it? They were hoping that it wasn't one of those things like on the trail that would be across it. So I just figure I throw that out there. I don't know if you know right away, but how are we going to make it into a pedestrian bridge?
So through the chair, the first thing to note is that the existing Bailey Bridge can serve as a pedestrian crossing for a longer period of time. The loading restrictions that we've imposed on the bridge upon an engineer's report are for the heavier loaded vehicles, your dump trucks, your waste collection vehicles, the things that are going to be redirected onto the West Street extension. So sort of at a first glance, the bridge could remain upon, you know, sort of frequent inspection. But when it does come time to replace, our envision would be a traditional pedestrian style bridge, would accommodate, you know, some small vehicles for maintenance purposes only. No openness for public travel through fire, just pedestrian activity, which would allow us to clear the area as well for walking in the wintertime.
Supplementary though, I'm still on the existing bridge. How are we going to make that into a pedestrian bridge? That was their concern.
Yeah, through the chair, a simple barricade system.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, just so long as that was their one question. And I think that was it for me. Thank you.
Derek, further to Member Cox. So would that potential walking bridge be like a sidewalk? Then you'd have the sidewalk when you're clearing the snow away, it would be motorized at that point, correct?
Yeah, through the chair, our sidewalk clearing activities would, you know, continue. Or effectively should continue. We may post it as a no winter maintenance, but that's probably not realistic. But we'll kind of hit those. What our primary focus is extending West Street, and then the ancillary fallout of what we do with the bridge next. We do know that it's going to be converted to a pedestrian, and one day will need to be replaced as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other Member Jansen has a sign.
I'm supportive of naming the street Rainbird Street. I agree that it would alleviate a lot of issues with switchover for the residents. In terms of the walking path, I think that's amazing. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with the road there, if that'll just be changed back to lawn at some point. You know, I don't know if there's a role that the township can play, but if there is, it would be great to see a connectivity from that walking pedestrian bridge to the new Rainbird Street and the West Street extension.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion for the name change or the name.
Thank you. So the motion reads that Public Works Report number W23-038 dated September 27th, 2023, with respect to the West Street extension update be received, and that the extension of West Street be named Rainbird Street.
Okay, we have a mover for that, please. Moved by Member Jansen, second by Member Cox. All in favor? That one's carried. Thank you. F 2.3, back to Mr. Burke, Transportation Master Plan.
And thank you to the chair. I think so. This report summarizes the conversations a few times over on the draft and amendments through the Transportation Master Plan. Staff have reviewed, you know, a lot of the comments and tried to reflect all of the conversations that we've had to date into this new draft. We do find it to be in good form and in hopefully final state for approval. There was some detailed changes throughout the document. I can speak to any of them if committee has any questions, but what we have attached as appendice is sort of the final document, not showing amendment. Actually, it doesn't have the red line. So let me know if there's any questions.
Okay, I'll ask the committee for any questions here. Member Cox.
I just had some corrections and a question on, and because it's not coming up yet here. It was on page 80, on page 128, a complete street policy. Just a question on that. Can you explain that? I don't think I asked to have that explained before.
I got this.
Yeah, through the chair.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, in the transportation design industry, I suppose it's a bit of a buzzword and continues to reflect the idea that streets need to consider more than just the vehicular mode of transportation. So a complete street approach is a policy where you define where your active transportation corridor should exist. When would you implement a transit stop, let's say, in coordination with the county links program, and just developing a complete street for all modes of transportation.
Okay, thank you. And it was the other one is, and you can just note this on page 136, the second sentence, no should be not. And they're talking about the downtown economic development. And I think that should be the Coldwater BIA.
Thank you. We can make those notes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, supplemental. We talk about in our master transportation plan, the slow down campaign we had. Is that something that you could bring forward a budget on those signs again, but brighten them up a bit? Because we're getting calls. I am getting some calls about that, and people were quite happy with them. So if that was something that we could look at budget.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that's really timely with the next rollout of one of our first recommendations from the plan is to develop a traffic calming policy. And that's just one of the tools in the toolbox we found useful in trying to promote, traffic calming through our communities.
Thank you very much.
Member Minnings.
Thank you, through the chair. Since you mentioned the traffic calming policy, can you give us an ETA on when we might see it?
Thank you, through the chair. So staff have already commenced some development of it. The logical order for us would have been to, approve the transportation master plan and then start following the recommendations that come out of it. And so we're poised and ready to deliver that, as early as the next available corporate services, just putting some final touches on that.
Okay, thank you, Derek. I'll ask Allison for a motion, please.
Thank you. The motion reads that Public Works Report number W23-039 dated September 27th, 2023 with respect to the Transportation Master Plan be received, and further that the revised Transportation Master Plan be adopted.
We have a mover for that, please. Moved by Member Brennan, second by Member Jansen. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
What's wrong? We're gonna have a break now? No.
It's 5-5.
Well, I was gonna ask about something.
So we'll go to admin F 4.1. Allison, updating the BIA bylaw.
Do you want to get to this one and then take it back? Sure. Okay, so I think the report is fairly straightforward. We've been working towards this for a little bit now. I think we've done a pretty good revision about separating the establishment bylaw from the procedures. So it basically gives the BIA their own operational procedure bylaw. With a couple small instances, it'll still make them fall back on the township's procedure bylaw for, definitions, emotions, and that type of stuff. But otherwise, it gives them a much more comprehensive operating framework to move forward under. The BIA board has reviewed it. The only question that there was about the concept of having a appointee sort of on behalf nominated for elections on behalf of a corporate member. And it would be just a corporate member, not any member. So staff are proposing that it be that whoever the employee is of that corporate member has to be with them for at least 6 months before they're put forward as a nominee. Make sure it ensures that they're just not sort of picked at random to be put forward as the name, and they have an awareness of the corporation they're representing, or the local business that they're representing, like the bank or what have you. before they're asked to represent it. We didn't think any longer period of time was appropriate because we are dealing with small businesses that tend to turn over fairly often or move into hopefully larger spaces. It might not remain as part of the BIA. So we want to make sure that we're finding that nice balance between ensuring that if an appointee is sitting on behalf of a corporate member, that they know the business they're representing, but also isn't sort of a hindrance to the local business trying to find a nominee at the same time. Outside of that,
thank you, Member Cox.
I just want to thank Allison. She's worked very hard on this, and it's really helped the BIA, as Member Jansen will agree. And it's clarified a lot of things because they were all brand new. So thank you very much for doing that.
Member Jansen.
I also want to thank you, Allison, for the assistance and the training that you've provided to date. I think it's been very helpful. And if there are more opportunities for training, I think that it would be beneficial to the VIA board. Thank you very much.
Allison, just my question, can you just recap to be approved to be on the board? What's the criteria again for that?
So to be considered for election to the board, because they're chosen from the members and then the names are brought forward to council. They have to, unless you're a corporate member, they have to be within that, they have to be a tenant. I just saw Jim drop through like a flood. So, sorry, they have to be a tenant or owner. They can't just be someone else that's just visiting or what have you. They have to be a tenant or an owner. So for a corporate member, so say TD Bank can nominate someone when it comes time for board elections to represent them instead. So their branch manager, a local employee, kiosk person, because it's not realistic that TD Corporate's going to send someone to your local BIA to sit on there, right? So the idea being is that appointee for a corporate member has to be having worked for that business for 6 months, and then those names, whomever they are, whether they're a tenant, like the actual business owner, because a lot of times in downtown cores, you only have 1 or 2 actual building owners, but you have lots of tenants that lease the business spaces, right? So you could have 10 names that come up to be considered for the board. They hold an election at the AGM that is voted by those that attend the AGM. Notice is given 30 days, all that before the AGM is held with the names and etc. is given out beforehand. And then they hold their AGM, the vote is taken, they have their new member. So they'll be looking for 1 new member this fall. And then that will come forward to council for final approval and appointment by bylaw.
Yeah, what my question is, if you're an employee at a store, can you be on the board?
If you are, you can, if the corporation puts you forward as an appointee. You can't just run of your own volition. You have, so if you, because it's the actual business that is the tenant. It's not you as the named employee who's the tenant. So say if it was the flower shop that was there, then the business owner as the tenant on the lease could put her name forward for the BIA board. Or if they had an employee that had been with them for 6 months, they could put their name forward as their representative, is what they're deemed to be called, as their representative. And if they're then elected, then they could be on board.
Great. So if you can be on the board and be an elector too, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Like at the AGM, if you're not on the board, you could be nominated by your employer.
Every BIA member.
Yeah.
Member is a voting member. The employee is not a voting member. The business owner as the tenant of the business space is the voting member, if that makes sense.
Okay, so then back up my original, to be on the board, you could be an employee.
An employee of the tenant.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion for that, please?
Yes. So the motion reads that administration report number A23-036 dated September 27th, 2023 regarding the Coldwater BA bylaws should be received, and that the new establishing governing bylaws for the Coldwater BA be approved and brought forward to the next council meeting for approval.
Thank you. I moved by Member Jansen, second by Member Cox. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
I believe our CA would like a 5-minute break just to grab some water before the next item.
Yeah, so I'll say we're back by 10:25. If that's okay, that'll give us a few minutes here. F 4.2, that's the CAO report. Oh, I think we're back. So we'll go to F 4.2, CAA report to comparative staffing analysis. And who would like to speak to it? Lori or Michelle? Lori?
Sorry, it'll be me as soon as Michelle figures out her. Are you in the Zoom meeting?
Oh, thank
you.
you.
Need to get out. Yeah. I think that's your.
And welcome to the meeting, Michelle.
In stereo.
I put you in the waiting room. There you go.
Thank you.
All righty. Through the chair, thank you for committee. As you can tell by the depth of analysis that I've prepared for you, I've been thinking a lot about council's desire for enhanced customer service. Council has made that clear through both your item that you put in your strategic plan, and you were so keen on it that you added it as a very specific goal on my own work plan. So it's something that you seem very committed to. As the CAO, I've been struggling with that a little bit because I think we have an absolutely amazing team and I witness what they do each and every day. So if they're not meeting your expectations, then I have to figure out why. And I just want to give you a quick example of how great the team is. Saturday, we had a little issue that a lot of council members got dragged into. And I think I had 4 staff who are not on call staff who stepped up and figured out how to fix the issue. So the team is pretty amazing. And they do a really great job, but there's a really big job to do. I've always known that we have been light on staffing for council members that have been around for a while. I did a little presentation for you in 2019 and staff always remember because I ended it with a little picture of a pirate boat and said we're a skeleton crew. And that's always been the approach in Severn. Since 2019, we have added various positions, a planner, a building inspector, a public works tech, a permit coordinator, and a training officer. But we started so far behind in our level of staffing and we're growing so rapidly that it's not enough. So I did a very detailed analysis for you to show how we compare to our peer group, and our staffing level is significantly lower, particularly if you look at comparing us to Clearview, who almost has the same population, and probably only member Burkett and I know Clearview as well as we know Severn, but it's a very similar geography. They have 3 sort of main streets and they're dispersed throughout big geography, so very similar. Clearview has 13 more staff than the township of Severn to deliver very similar programs. And when you look through the analysis, it's particularly low, the staffing levels in the areas that council has specifically expressed concerns: general customer service, project management, and recreation. So the numbers bear out your concerns that maybe we're not doing as good a job as you would like, but also we don't have the staff to support those services. I specifically see these things when a new idea comes to council and you're excited about it. I find that my first instinct is to say, no, we can't do that. And that's not what I want to be as a leader. I want to be innovative and be able to deliver all of the things that council wants. But it is who I need to be for my staff who are already taxed to the absolute max. I also saw it at AMO. Council came very enthused about new great ideas and cool things. And in my head, I was thinking, that's fantastic, but who's going to do that? So I guess my long-winded point is council needs to make some choices. It's okay to maintain the status quo, and that is totally your choice. But we can't continue to add and to do better with services. So if you don't want to grow staff, then you have to be more realistic about service levels and the number of projects that we can successfully deliver. If you do want to improve service levels, then we need to invest resources. So I've given you a ton of options. I think if you want to improve service levels, I've identified for you 3 immediate holes and then the need for a longer term look of where we grow. I think my report speaks to, with the plans of subdivisions we have on the table right now, we can possibly grow 25% in the next 5 years, which is pretty huge for the size of Severn. The rest, I think, is pretty self-explanatory in my report. I'm happy to answer any of your questions, and I've given you tons of options because it really is a council determination of who you want to be and where you want to go.
Okay, thank you, Lori, and I'll open up to the committee. I'm going to start with Member Brennan.
Yeah. Further to your comments with regard to our strategic plan and your own goals for the season, I just want to compliment you on this report. I'm actually surprised you didn't get a consultant to do this. I don't know where you can find the time to do that. That's a lot of work. It clearly highlights some of the challenges that we do have, in my view, in my, whatever it is now, 15 months on council. We really do need to move forward to fill a few of these positions. I'm particularly interested in the, I still do what I call my meet and greets in my ward. And I hear from so many people and so many things on the customer service front in particular. I think sometimes we're unfairly called on things, but there is a need for additional firepower under the customer service banner, in my view, with regard to issues management side of things and with tracking our performance, so that we can demonstrate that, in fact, we do respond. We are responding. I know for a fact a lot of the people that tell me we aren't responding are people that have tried 3 times to get us to do something that we've said no to. But there are people that are just simply frustrated because in many cases we just say things and it just falls off the plate. And it's getting those low priority things some way or another to the top that will change, I think, the view of some of the residents with regard to how we're doing. So the customer performance, the recreation speaks to itself. We've all addressed that in the recreation plan. It's a no-brainer for me. We approved the plan. You can't have it both ways. So we said that's what we want, and it is very specific about some requirements there. The project manager, unless we really want to kill Derek, and he's not that bad a guy, I say he needs some help. So this is great. I know it costs money. We're also doing pretty good financially. And you're right, we're growing. I strongly suspect the demands on the planning department are going to go through the roof in the next few years. That's another story for another day. But we can't expect staff to super perform if we don't properly staff the organization. So my view on that, for what it's worth.
Thank you for that. Anyone else on the committee? We'll go at the far end. We'll come Member Burkett, and then we'll go Member Jansen and go through.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Lori, for the report. And I'm sitting here, and Member Brennan, you're correct. If we stay the same way we are, and we're not going to grow. We're going to have growth, as you know, as CAO, Madam CAO has stated, we have growth. But what I look at, and I'm okay with what's written here. What I'm looking at are, we have some staff members here that have a lot of history of what goes on in this township, with new members coming on. And I'm sure that some of the members or some of the staff members that we do have will be retiring soon. And all that knowledge that they have is going to be gone. So if we're not going to train new people and these older staff members pass that knowledge that they have about our township, that's going to be lost, and it's going to cost us money down the road. And I'm not going to, if I may, I'm going to say Michelle's position. And I know she does multiple jobs, not just the job that she's handed, but, and I'm sorry, Michelle, for saying, but I know what Michelle does. And to Madam CEO's comments, other people, staff members in this building, do multiple jobs. They're able to fill in. and do what's needed to get the job done. Are we at the limit as to how much we can handle? I think absolutely. Absolutely. Like, those are just my comments, but I'd like to hear what other members of council have to say.
Okay, let Madam CEO jump in and then we'll go to Member Jansen.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to that, and just to be clear that the three positions that I'm suggesting at the moment are a start, and then we would be looking for a 5-year plan, because I'm very aware of the knowledgeable staff that we have that are getting close to retirement. It's hard to cross-train and pass that knowledge down when everybody already has a full job. So as we do a 5-year plan, or we do an org review, however council wants to approve that, we will consider the growth needs along with the succession planning piece. But you can't do that if you don't have the right number of bodies, because there just isn't capacity in their day.
Okay, thank you. I'll let Member Chance speak if the mayor will turn his mic off.
Sorry. Thank you very much, through the chair. Thank you very much for putting this report together. I agree. Not only do we need to ensure that we're providing the services that we're supposed to be providing as a township, but also taking care of our residents, whether that's questions and concerns, or developers and builders when they're trying to do business here in our community. I guess my question is, if we were to undertake, let's just, go right to the top. I think number 7 is probably the most robust option that's on here. When we look at the financial considerations that are there, we see that it would be a significant impact on the tax levy. And I know that we will be coming up to budget time. Do we know what kind of an impact that would be at the moment, and if there are or would be any suggestions that would be brought forward at budget time to offset the impact to the tax levy?
I'll let Madam CEO speak to that.
Thank you. I think it'll be a combination of impact to the tax levy and more aggressive's not the right word, more accurate budgeting for some of our revenue lines. Like you heard in our financial presentation this morning that our interest revenue is through the roof. So we can, and we typically want to budget conservatively, because if interest rates tank next year, then you don't want to be relying on that. But we can balance that with, we're growing so fast that the tax base will also grow. So I think there's some value in budgeting a little bit more assertively and using up some of that revenue, because you saw last month we had a $2 million surplus the last 2 years. So there's options. So it won't some of it will absolutely fall on the tax rate, and it will need to increase. And you'll see in my analysis, we do have the lowest tax rate, which corresponds to the lowest number of staff. So to be sustainable over the long term, you're going to need to impact taxes, but there are also some other revenue sources that I think will mitigate that somewhat.
Go ahead, Member Jansen.
Supplemental. So if we were just to decide at this moment to engage a consultant to find out their professional opinion about our organizational review, would that come back prior to the budget process, so that we'd be able to make an informed decision for the next budget year or years moving forward?
Through the chair, I would respectfully say not likely. Like, we'd have to RFP it and hire the consultant, and they would have to do the work. So budget starts in November. That's a pretty tight time frame. I think I've already identified the immediate holes. What I'm looking for the consultant is to put a growth lens on it, and as we've added positions over the last couple of years, we've kind of been putting our finger in the dike on immediate holes without an overall vision of, can we do things differently, or can we organize differently? So that's sort of where I'm looking at for that, and I would think that would be a bit of a longer term project, so after budget.
In supplemental, so that would be referring to for our options for consideration, option number 4.
So the option 4 is to fill all 3 positions that I've recommended to you immediately and have staff develop a 5-year plan. Option 7 is the same 3 positions and having a organizational review. So similar but different.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go at the far end and come this way. If Member McIntyre, I'd like to hear your comments, or the committee would like to hear it, and staff, and then we'll come this way.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Good report, Lori. Very good report. You have multiple options. I'm in favor of 4 or 5, one or the other. I agree that we probably need to fill those 3 positions immediately, if not sooner. And I think that the staff we have on hand could probably handle that with ease in order to get those 3 positions filled. As far as a consultant goes, if we have a 5-year plan, we fill the first 3 positions immediately. I'm not certain whether a consultant's required. I mean, I think that the quality of the directors and the CAO at the moment would be able to, over 5 years, bring us up more close to speed in terms of Clearview and other townships than the peers that we've been looking at and you've reviewed. I have all the faith in the world that the group that you have here, after you fill the initial 3 positions, could probably fill the needs in terms of hiring of further staff. I agree there's a desperate need. The staff's overtaxed, overwhelmed some days. And the two-day callback for anybody that you speak to here, well, I'll call you back if within 2 days, sometimes does not work even then. So I agree 100% that, and the report's a marvelous report. We just, my point is, I guess, that I think that the staff we have on hand over the next period of time after filling the first 3 immediate positions are quite qualified to determine where do we go from there in terms of filling the positions that are required to bring us up to speed. Otherwise, if it's of the choice of the group, I would go with a consultant, but and either 4 or 5 to me makes sense. So yeah, once again, I appreciate the report. It's very comprehensive.
Thank you. Member Minnings.
Sorry, through the chair, may I just follow up on Councillor McIntyre, because I think you're mentioning 4 and 5, but I think what you're speaking to is 4 and 7. So just to clarify, just so council, you're happy to do all 3 and either staff prepare a staffing plan or a consultant. So that's 4 and 7, just so that council's not.
Okay, Member Minnings.
Hi, thank you. I actually have a lot of feedback on the report and maybe have a slightly different perspective than some of my colleagues. One area that I feel that I'm missing the content and the meat and potatoes are in the statistics. So for example, the anecdotal or the narrative of the report speaks to things like continually growing, very short time frames, just phrases like that aren't statistically based. And I think, you know, from working with me over the past 8 months that I need the numbers. So the only numbers I see yet again are compared to other townships. So, and I'm just scrolling through my notes on page 4 at the top. You say it's interesting to note that Clearview, with almost the same population as Severn, spends almost double what Severn does on staffing. And my question is simply, what is that actually illustrating to me? Do they pay more? They only have 12 more staff. So it doesn't show that, to me, it just doesn't see that spending double on staffing has solved a problem for them. So, okay, I'm just going to go to my final recommendation, which is that this is really important. I agree that the staffing should be looked at, but I think it needs a dedicated meeting to look at. I'd like to hear from the department heads. I'd like to know what our customer service standards are for callbacks, etc. I think we are low on the admin side, which is the support side of the operation, where people answer phone calls within X number of rings and respond and track all of those things that generate not just more work for council, because that is the bulk of the calls I've experienced, but duplication of effort from the township. And I understand, and I can see from the overall tone of the report that there is frustration. And I would love to work with you, but the choices that you've outlined, I do not support another consultant, because the consultants I've seen tend to be the same ones used from the same townships we're compared to. And I think we have unique needs, etc. So I do point taken about the HR position. Everything, a lot of what we're talking about goes back to human resources. And we have one person, I believe, running the human resources department here in the township. So the other thing I will say around positions is the building and the planning. Let me go back. There's a comment in here about the staff person that's supporting our new director of rec. Yay. And that they're now with him coming on board, that and I'm scrolling through this report, that they're more overworked and it's not sustainable. I think that's the general gist of what was written. However, they were doing the same job supporting the director of planning at the roads. So I think we need more admin support, and they need to be streamlined and targeted so that they have clear portfolios. And I think that's the start. I'm just concerned about starting at the top. You also mentioned rates of growth. So when I went through, you say the township subdivision agreements, I'm on, the page isn't marked here. Page 2 of 14 will continue strongly over the next few years. I looked at the reports that were in the agenda package for building permits issued, and unless we had issued 100 in June or July, in the summer, August and September, we're not at the same numbers as a year ago. We've issued less building reports from the same time last year, building permits from the same time last year. And although our growth is going to happen, I understand that in the main subdivisions happening in Ward 4, that there's only 8 occupancies that have happened in all of those, with fewer building permits. All this to say, I'm not convinced that this report really paints the picture for me as to what the need is. I'd like to see more numbers on that. So I think I'm just going to pause there, because I really would like the opportunity to talk about the way the township's organized from the directors and from you, Lori, so that I can really understand how we're going to be aligned to the growth. Somebody mentioned plugging holes, and that's exactly what this feels like to me, is just putting some Band-Aids on things. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. We can come back. Member Cox.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I'll start with recreation. I totally agree. Recreation definitely needs assistance. Wendy also is running now 2 departments, and that's just not fair and right for her. So I believe that we do, and I believe that if we can find someone that could do both jobs, that would be wonderful. And I'm sure once Craig has been here for a while And due to different things we've heard lately, that there may be some more desire for more recreation staff. But I'll leave that for the future. The next one, customer service. I agree that we definitely need a customer service person. And I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm sure you're going to let us know, because they can fill in for the frontline staff. They can be doing that, and there possibly could be an opening for them to help out in other areas, which right now we need, and we have all said that with our evaluation. The project manager. I believe we need a project manager, but I would like to hope that it wouldn't just be roads, public works. I have looked into project manager positions, and I also see that, yes, that we probably do, but there's going to be off seasons and other seasons, and we do have facilities that need to be looked after. And I realize, I think that has fallen underneath Craig to be manager of recreation and facilities. So I do know that in some municipalities, that project manager also helps with the facilities, the building, the planning departments, and sort of goes around and helps all areas, which I believe is probably something that we could definitely utilize that person for. And I may be wrong, but that's the way I read it. And that's what I'd like to see, that this person could do that and help us. The other one is, if we do a consultant, which if we decide to do number 7 or just get a consultant, is that something the development charges could pay for due to growth? I'm stretching it, but we are talking growth.
Yeah, Madam CEO.
I'm not 100% sure of the answer, but I'm fairly sure that the recent changes to the DC Act took out studies.
Okay, I just thought I'd say that.
90% sure on that, so I think no.
Okay, so then back to the consultant. I believe that a consultant to come in, and I've talked to other people in other municipalities, and when a consultant comes in, they look at it with a brand new perspective. I think when you're closer to the ground, you start looking at that job, the person, and you're not looking at the person, you're looking at positions. And I believe that a consultant would come in and look at the positions and maybe even reorg a lot of things that we think are wonderful. But then when we look at it, it goes, well, that just makes common sense that we should be doing this, and this should be here, and this should be there. And I think, and I'm not saying that our staff can't do it. I just think a perspective from someone who does this may be able to pull things together and utilize things much differently than we would just be, as Lori said, plugging holes and maybe putting somebody here and there where they would go, you need this department here and these people here and this can be here. And it sort of refreshes the whole thing. And I think it would be good for staff to have someone come in and help them with that, because I'm sure that they will talk to staff and they will find out what jobs they do and how everything can become more efficient than we are now. Not saying that we're not efficient. I think we could be more efficient. So I probably am okay. And I've thought about it. I've changed my mind 15 times on this, but I've thought about it. And I really believe that probably number 7 would be our best bet. And we go ahead with the hiring of the other people, which probably won't happen until, well, as soon as you can, I guess. And I also agree with Councillor Jansen about the effect on our tax levy. I would like to see that in the budget, we come forward with sort of some numbers for the next few years on where we could be and what will happen. Thank you.
Okay, member CEO, do you have any questions on what's been said so far? And then I'm going to say my part, and then you guys can go back again.
No, thank you. I'm just watching the debate.
Okay. From my perspective, the complaints I've been getting out there is basically, and they weren't really highlighted in the report, is planning and building and bylaw. And basically the perception out there from our residents, it's costing them time and money. And I hear the common rephrase, if you want to get something done, hire a consultant. And somewhere along the line, I don't think we're performing for our residents there. And the common theme there is that people call in, they never talk to a live person, and they rarely get a call back. So that's the perception from me. And so I think Member Minnings mentioned there that customer service. So I think I came from the private business where you can measure customer service on complaints, sales. So I think our committee, I'd like to know what our committee thinks customer service is and what staff thinks what customer service is. And I think it warrants a separate meeting. It's a big thing there. And our residents have options. They can get mad at us, vote us out, or put complaints and carry on from there. So I think it warrants a separate meeting to discuss customer service and what it means to everyone here. And I'm thinking more of my option I'm looking at is perhaps option 3 is what I'm looking at. So on that note, I'll go back to the far end and we'll come this way again. Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair. So we definitely have some struggles. This term of council, and I'm looking at that 40 million plus that we have in reserves, and I'm not against hiring more staff. My issue now is where are we going to house these staff? So there's going to be a cost to expand this municipal building. And I know that that's something that Madam CEO is going to bring forward. The demographics in our township is changing. The wants and needs of the newcomers that are coming, and we welcome them, are going to be different from what we're accustomed to. Do we need someone at the front that's going to be able to help? Absolutely. I can't agree more. Also, we have a new director of rec, and I believe that recreation is dear and near to the new people that are moving as well as the people that are here. So absolutely 100% agree that we need someone to help our new director of rec. I'm looking forward to see how this is going to unfold throughout our township. We have a rec center that's been on hold for years, 12 years, where I think we're going to have to make a decision in this term of council whether we build it or we don't build it, because we're not going to get any funding. And I'm not, again, looking at the amount of money that we have in reserves, but we're going to have to bite the bullet at some point. We've got a lot of decisions that we have to make. We've got a report here that's looking at 3 new hires. I don't know, to Member Jansen's comments, what is that going to cost us on the levy? Do we want to make that decision today, or do we want to have Andrew or have a report come back as to what it's going to cost us? Like, I'm happy to move forward with a customer service person and a person to help our new director, and leave the third one until we actually get some physical costs. And I don't know how the others feel, but I believe the 2 positions need to be filled. And I think we have room in this building now to do it. And that's something that's going to move us forward. Just my comments.
I'll pass it to Member Jansen, and we'll keep coming this way if you want to further comment to what you said earlier or to what you've heard so far. Okay.
You're done?
Yeah, Member Brennan, you had your sign up.
Thank you. See if I get my red button on. Thank you, through the chair. Just respectfully, with regard to Member Minnings' concerns around details, I want to deal with this at the policy level. That's why I'm here as a counselor. That's why we're all here as a counselor. We deal with things at the policy level. So I'm just not interested in every intricate detail about what you're in charge of as CAO. I really am not. I might be interested in a little bit of it, but for the most part, I really have other things to do. So I don't think I need a whole lot more detail to know we're stuck right now. Like today, we're stuck. We're stuck on the recreation. We're stuck in project management. We're stuck on the third aspect as well. So, you know, we got to get unstuck. We got to keep moving. We can't wait for certain other things to come to play. I want to again emphasize that this customer service person, to me, I hope this person is not just an admin person. I'm hoping these are boots on the ground. Like, this person can actually hop in that rusty car you have out there and go see these people and report back and say, well, here's the answer. Or, because I know I get a lot of help from the staff, you know, when I'm out there and someone says, geez, you know, the culvert's 50 feet tall. I can't get out, you know, and I go there and it's not 50 feet tall, you know, it can wait. But I'd love for someone to tell me that and save me a trip some days. So the customer service thing, I just don't see how we can continue with people not being happy with us, regardless of the fact that, you know, we want to do some more detailed budget and planning. So I like option 7. I'm following the deputy mayor's thinking on that. I like the idea of a consultant, because if we say, let's have staff look at the 5 to 10 year forecast, number one, they're looking at what they're used to. And that's fine. But I would like to think that there is a consulting firm out there that can look at where we're going. It's the same issue I have with the economic strategy. Where the hell are we going? I don't want to hear the old crap over it again. I want to know, right or wrong, where you think we're going to be in 10 years so that I can make decisions here. And I think that a professional term can do that. Asking staff to do that just ties you up again. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me that staff would do that. We apparently can't do what we're doing. So, you know, Jim, in all respect, I think they're smart enough. I agree with you 100%. But are we really doing our people a service if we ask more work at an HR level where we have one person? It makes no sense to me. As far as I think the issue of customer service standards we've dealt with already in our strategic plan. We are getting a report back on this, and I'm sure, are going to have really go through that. I know I have a great interest in it. You clearly do. And so I think that's already in play as far as I understand it. So it's not really necessary to blend it into this exercise at this time. And as far as, and I agree, we've got some issues with regard to planning, building, and bylaws. I hear it from Otis Park every meeting I go to, but it's out there. But that's the whole issue of streamlining approvals, right? On the one hand, your planner says you got to do a geothermal, you got to do this, you got to do an EA, you got to do that. And I know Rob Ford, in his wrong-headed way, has been trying to streamline approvals. And there's another thing out now on environmental approvals, but getting rid of approvals is not the answer. But I don't know if there's a mechanism at the Simcoe County level, whatever, but we've already done some streamlining. We heard about that today with regard to the 2-tier approval system. So maybe we look at that, but it would be nice if people didn't have to spend a fortune to raise a building or do some of these other things. I don't know the dynamics behind these things, but that's an issue of, can we streamline approval processes? It's a different issue, and it needs to be dealt with. I would need someone like Derek and someone like Andrea to tell me, where do you begin looking at how you can streamline processes? And is it a local thing? Is it a regional thing? What is it? I don't know that. I'm not equipped to handle those answers, but I know we got an issue with it. That much I get, because I hear it too, Mark. So I don't know. For me, let's not wait. Go to 7, fix the immediate problems. We'll worry about the other things through a longer 5-year plan. To me, that's how we get unstuck. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll go back to Mr. McIntyre and come this way.
Thank you, Chair. Still think the staff's quite capable of doing it. Nevertheless, Phil, you have your point. I did say, as I said earlier, I would agree that if a consultant, and the group thought a consultant was better, I would agree with that.
Yes.
For the immediate, Member Burkett mentioned a space issue, and we're not going to stick a portable out there and put somebody in it, so that's not happening. However, I do agree that the 2 are immediate. Before we get to the director position, the 2 are immediate, as Mr. Burkett said. I'd agree with that in a second, and it looks like 7 seems to be the option that CAO's put forward. So if it's a consensus, I'm in agreement with that. However, I still think the staff's quite capable of doing it over a 5-year to 10-year period. I know that we're short on time because we're short on staff, but yeah, if you fill 2 holes today and 1 next year and 2 the next, or 3 the next month, whatever, I think staff's good enough to do it. But a consultant, if that comes to that, let's go with that. So
yeah, just to jump in, though, 7 is hiring 3 positions, correct?
Well, I'm seven sounds the member Burkett chair. We have an immediate need for 2, possibly 3, but for my
This says 3.
yeah, well, okay, so I'll amend 7 to say yes, to say that 7 today, and look forward to the director later on, as soon as possible. So that's all I got.
Yeah, sorry to jump in there, but I did. But Member Minnings.
Hi, thank you. When I speak about statistics and just some more information that's on there, it includes things that are measurable. And I'm not disputing the fact that we're here to guide. I'm not interested in how you sort out who does what in there. I do agree that there are some areas where starting with some administrative staff should be a priority. And when I say administrative, whether they jump in a car and go and unlock the Washego Rec Center or not, I have no idea. That's not our lens. It's more bodies to assist with the work. When I talk about a consultant, if a consultant is going to do an organizational review around staffing positions in anticipation of the future growth that's going to happen, but isn't here right at the moment, so that we can make proper decisions around positions, etc. 100%. We're all singing out of the same songbook there. We are not staffed up to manage more than 100% growth in Ward 4, for example, which is slated to happen. But I would not want the organizational review to compare us to the sister townships in the area, because to me, that's not helpful. It would be a standalone organizational review from a business lens on what we need as far as bodies and resources to do the work of the township. I'll pause there. The CEO has a question.
Madam CEO.
Yeah, I hear what Councillor Minnings is saying, but I'm just not sure the statistics that you're looking for are available. Like right now, we don't have our customer service database up and running, so I don't have any statistics on that. That is how your comparators to your others, that's how it's done in the municipal world. Like we don't have standards that say a minor variance application takes 2 hours of processing. Like that's not what they're going to do. They're going to look at other organizations that do things differently. But I don't think they're going to get to the level of detail that Councillor Minnings is looking for, because those stats just don't exist in municipal world.
Okay, and supplemental.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate you saying that those stats don't exist, because I think that's what I've been thinking, that we don't have statistics to do that. So again, a true organizational review when we're looking at the organization as a standalone entity, I would absolutely support that, because that would give me the information that I would need to see how we need to staff up. And we may or may not. I'm still looking at Director Burke's department, and it is large and it is multifaceted. And that may or may not be the way other municipalities are designed, but there may be other work that can be done in that. And again, I think a true operational review would determine that.
Thank you, Member Cox.
Yeah, and that was my whole idea with the consultant would be that to look at. My whole one too, I was going to say about statistics from, I've been in this quite a while, and it basically comes down to your complaints, your comments, and your concerns, and your growth is what drives what we have to do and fix. And I know that we're getting a new database coming in that we can do that for customer service. But I think anything in the past, it's been staff come forward, we see it as part of council, and we go, oh, we're not getting done what we should get done. And then that's when we regroup and we look at it and we try to fix it. And that's why I think a consultant, outside person could come in and help us fix that. And the part about having a lot of people with offices here, I'm sure there's still that room, but for now, the other part is during the year, we have people who work from home and who work here. And I know we've talked about general desks when people could come in and out. So I'm sure we could figure something out for now. I guess, and referring back to Member Burkett's, I would like to see something brought forward at budget with the effects of what we're going to do, because I highly doubt that we will be, we can see in the future where it will be, and I'm sure that won't be very hard to do. But I still think number 7 is the way to go, only because it's a clear vision for the future and someone coming in to help us reorg.
Thank you. And just further what I mentioned about bylaw, I don't want to be proactive. I want to be complaint driven on that one. So it's just that once again, we're not out marching around looking for trouble there, but as the discussion proceeds here, I would be more in favor of 3 or 6 and hiring one person, and that one person is for recreation, but also relieves the current position in Public Works, that you're correcting 2 issues with one person there to free up more time with Public Works and then focus on recreation. So I would be swaying, instead of hiring 2 people, I would favor in hiring one position. Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair. So, Madam CEO, could maybe, for the benefit of council, a project manager, like, I'm sorry, I can't remember if I read it here. Just, can we get an explanation as to how and what he or she may do? And also the fact that whenever we tender out for a road, what has been happening is there's always been a Tatham's, or I'm not sure who else, but there was someone that oversees the project. And my understanding is this project manager would now be that person that would be overseeing those projects, rather than having to pay money to have some outside firm oversee to make sure that, there's enough pavement, there's enough aggregate, there's enough ditching. Like, I'm just curious, just for the benefit of council.
MCAO.
Thank you, through the chair. I knew that question would come up, so I'm well prepared to answer it. A project manager would oversee capital projects, largely roads, but to the deputy mayor's point, would also be involved in facilities. So we do have a big reno coming up. The West Shore project will be huge and probably, too big for Craig to do on his own. Prepare bids and tenders, create cost estimates, coordinate technical specs of the job, select contractors, manage deliverables. And I want to stay on that one for a minute, because that is where we fall down, because we just don't have the bodies. So we have consultants that do it. They don't do a great job. So we have a contractor who's supposed to turn up on Monday and they don't, but we don't notice until Thursday. And then it takes us to the following Monday to find out why they didn't turn up. And then we're 3 weeks late in a job, because we just don't have the bodies to be out on the road to be on top of all of those things. So I think that's where it really adds some value, and it's been where we've really struggled, and council has commented that we're not getting all our capital projects done, or if we are, they're taking a really long time, like the lights at County 169. They would manage conflicts. So with jobs, there's always conflicts between the work done and how much we should pay them. There's conflicts with the residents, like they have concerns. And so that takes a lot of time for somebody, if we're putting a road in front of your house, you've got concerns about how we're going to finish your driveway or whatever. That takes a person to go out and make those personal touches. And they would be the site inspection person.
Supplementary, if I may, through the chair. So I hear succession planning. So if we were going to go with 3 new hires, and of course that's your job, Madam CAO, to look at your staff and see where, if there is 3 new bodies in this building, is there going to be an opportunity for someone in the building to possibly in the future replace some of our long-serving staff that have been here for years and able to retain that knowledge that he or she may have?
Through the chair, an addition of 3 bodies would be a start. It's not going to get you to the end. I mean, we still need a long-term plan, and there's lots of other holes. There's holes in planning. You know, you're undertaking an economic development strategy, so you know you're going to need a body to manage that. So it's not the only, it's the beginning. But those 3 people, like Michelle and I and the department heads, have already sort of sat down and said, okay, if we get those 3 people, how can we reorganize the pieces of people's jobs? So to free up some time to do those more customer service aspects and for more succession planning stuff. I have some ideas of how I want to rejig. I don't want to share the details with council because they involve people, and until we get that far with the people, it's not appropriate to share. But definitely that's on my mind, as to how to rejig and provide some support for the staff that might be closer to retirement, for people to learn what they're doing by some shuffling.
Okay, any other comments from the committee? Member Burkett.
Thank you. Through the chair to Madam CEO. So the consultant, like, I'm looking at a consultant that does this for a living. That's what they do. My fear is they're going to come. I don't think it should be a fear. They're going to come and look at our structure, and I'm going to tell you right now, we'll probably need about 10 bodies. That's what they're going to come back. And that's that is a huge concern for me. Whether or not it's going to make us a better organization, I don't know. And ultimately it's our decision whether or not we hire those 10 bodies. And I don't think you have the number. What does a consultant cost to do something like that? Just curious. Is it in here? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading. Okay.
All right. Member Cox would like to comment.
And I understand where you're coming from with this consultant, but my look at it is it's a 5 to 10 year to 12-year plan that they're coming back. They're going to look at us and say, okay, here's what in my mind, what they might do. They might say, oh yeah, here's your customer service people. You got somebody hopping up over here and then somebody goes over there. So, but they're all under different things. Maybe you reorg this and this becomes a customer service area, or you take your planning and you go, they may say, well, that's great, but maybe this planner should be here and in charge of that. And those types of things that we may not have looked at that will be efficient, but it's not something that says that when that consultant finishes the report, let's say we hire them and next May they're finished. That's not saying this is something we have to do yesterday or tomorrow. This is a 10-year plan based on forecasts, based on they'll find out how many subdivisions we're actually looking at, our wastewater, all those types of things, and where we could be. And they will do it in a manner much different than the provincial governments do. And they will look at it as something we can head to, and it can be updated at times, just like our master transportation and our recreation plan. That's how I see it. And I don't know, but if Madam CEO would like to comment, thank you.
Through the chair, that's been my experience. I have been involved in a couple of different organizations, and they give you a plan. They recognize that you can't add 10 staff in a year. That's just not realistic for a municipality their size. But they will give you, targets to work towards and a plan. And I think the deputy mayor has it right. The value is looking at it differently. I have some ideas, but only based on kind of where I've worked before. I don't know what I don't know. So somebody who does this for a living may have better, more efficient ways to rejig. Like we're going to rejig the duties a little bit if we get 2 or 3 of these positions, but they'll look at the whole organization and say, this is better here and that's better there. And, you can do these processes more efficiently. So that's kind of the value of an outsider.
Member Brennan.
Yeah. Just one other aspect of that too is that kind of report would speak to new technologies that are going to change the way we work. And that's the other part of this. we can expect substantive changes in the way we do business because of artificial intelligence and other solutions. The world is just moving so damn fast, and that's where I don't think we can handle it ourselves because it's just not our area of expertise.
Member Cox and then Member Jansen.
This is just a quick one. You stop and think where we were in January 2020 and look where we are now. Zoom meetings, people can participate more. I mean, we've come a long way online, working from home, different things that there are, and there's more coming, as Member Brennan said.
Yeah, Member Jansen.
Yeah, I'm just gonna just kind of go back to my original concern, which was on the impact on the tax levy. If we do make a decision today, I guess that we'll find that out automatically. You know, I think what Member Burkett said about adding the 2 additional staff and then maybe looking at the 3rd staff member, which would be the project manager. If I'm correct with the way that you said it, and maybe we can make an informed decision at the budget time. That might be a good idea. And I do have a question about the project manager because I do see the list of other municipalities, and I'm just wondering if they have a project manager or is it just a project advisor, and what might be the difference there? Because I see only a project advisor for Oro Medonte, I believe.
Through you, I didn't look at all of the individual job descriptions, just sort of titles, but most municipalities have some sort of capital project manager and they may just call them different things. I'm not sure. I think we're the only ones that does not have that position.
Okay, I'll just jump in. So is there a trade-off, Lori, then are we going to save money in consulting fees? Is that what I'm hearing? So it's that we don't get the full impact. There's a reduction in our expenses.
Some, yeah, some. I won't say it's a 1-for-1. There'll always be the need for some there'll be projects that are outside of the scope of our abilities. So yes, some, not 100%.
Thank you, Member Minnings.
Thank you. After listening to everybody, and if we are going to get some external advice on how the township staff should be organized, what positions we need to resource, bringing in 3 permanent positions at this time seems to be putting the cart before the horse, especially with some of the more expensive and more senior positions. I shouldn't say expensive, but more senior positions that will be making decisions and decision makers, etc. So again, if we can move quickly on bringing someone in to do an operational review for the resourcing of the township and provide support in the areas that are draining people, and including the leadership team from managing some of these things themselves. So that's where I would go with it. Let's not get too far ahead of things. I do support a refreshed organization as far as positions, but I think what I've heard too is nobody in this room is qualified to determine exactly what that is today.
Okay, thank you, Member Cox.
Okay, I can go. I want to go with the consultant, and I can live with the recreation and the customer service. But I really, if it's going to come down to not getting a project manager, I would prefer to say bring the project manager back at budget time with some costs on it or something, because I don't want to lose the project manager part. If we can agree on a 7 with all of them, I'm in. But if I have to bite it, I'll bite it. I don't want that to fall to the side and not be looked at.
Okay, thank you, Member Brennan.
I agree with the deputy mayor.
Okay, and so 2 questions or 2 comments from here. When will we see the customer service results?
Do you mean the updated standards?
Correct. Like further to what Are there any stats coming forward?
There are no stats because we don't have any mechanism to do stats.
But you said it's in the works or something, and when is that going to transpire?
Yeah, so hope springs eternal that we have our new financial system by the end of the year, but that'll be the beginning of the stats collection. So there won't be useful stats for 6 months, a year. I think what Member Brennan was speaking to is in the strat plan, we were to bring back some updated customer service standards and have that discussion with council. So maybe November, where Michelle and I were just talking about that yesterday, maybe November, we're targeting that.
So that's another discussion as far as the strat plan goes with what everybody's view of customer service is. Okay, good. And since I've got the floor, I still fearful that we're adding positions before we've done the budget, and I don't think that's the right way to do things. And whether we can agree in principle of hiring the one position, like I said earlier, the rec programmer to relieve the duties from the current person from Public Works, that hits two birds with one stone. So my option is more like a number 6 there. Heather. Oh, go ahead, Lori.
I'm hearing a lot of different ideas and options. I think the clerk has a motion that captured the majority, not all. You're not all on the same page. I'm very clear on that. If you're ready to wrap the discussion, perhaps you could read that motion. It passes or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, then you move on to an alternative.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is have Allison read the motion, and then before we even move it, we'll have discussion from the committee. Okay, with committee.
Yes.
Okay, so a first draft.
Putting up takes a moment just because she's working on 2 different computers.
Working on 2 computers and 3 screens.
I just think sometimes when we do these new motions, it's much easier for us to see and the people to see when they're up on the board.
Make it. How's that? I will. Just gotta get to the screen. Okay, so the proposed first motion is that the CAO report 2023-06 be received and that staff be directed to proceed under option 7 as amended to hire 2 positions at this time, being the recreation coordinator and customer service staff, and that staff report back in the 2024 budget as to the budget impact of the project manager position prior to hiring. So this option 7 does include the hiring of the consultant, just to make sure that that's clear. Does.
Okay, I'll let the committee comment on that. But just once again, we don't know what the impact of the first paragraph is on the budget, correct?
No. Not fully.
There is a financial component in this staff report, but as I say, I can't tell you the exact tax levy increase because we're going to use some of the revenue to offset it. So until I see the whole picture, it does tell you in the staff report how much each of those positions will cost. How that translates to the tax levy, we won't know until we see it all. Yeah, but remember, we just had a report that said we had 2 years of $2 million of surplus. Mm-hmm. So the money is there.
But we've had 2 years of almost 4% tax increase too.
You're gonna have more, so get ready.
Inflation's running about 9%. So,
yeah. Member Burkett.
Through the chair, I agree there will be an impact, but by the time if council approves it, it probably won't be until November. There may be 2 months. It'll be pretty minimal if we go with two new staff positions, and by that time, we're into budget deliberations and we'll have a better idea.
Member Jansen will come right across the table.
Thank you. And through the chair, just looking at again this financial considerations, it says the cost to increase the regional coordinator position from 20 to 35 hours is minimal, and it would be absorbed in the budget for this year. So just to be clear, are we hiring a staff member to be a full-time staff member, or is there somebody currently there that would be willing to move to full-time?
There's not someone there because we couldn't hire. We tried to hire. I'm not sure if I covered that in this report or somewhere else, but we tried to hire a part-time recreation coordinator, and nobody wants a part-time job anymore. So there is no one, but we hope with a full-time that we will attract someone.
Supplemental. So then what we're saying is that there already is a budget to hire a part-time regional coordinator, and the increase would be to that budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Member Brennan.
Yeah, I could live with what's on there. I would prefer to hire all three right off the bat, frankly. But if well, the budget's what, November? Yeah. Well, all right. I can live with that. It's not my preference, but I can live with it.
Member McIntyre.
Through the chair, what the mayor, what the member Burkett said, we're so close to the end of before budget time, and Member Jansen reiterated it. I think hire the two right away as fast as we can, and vet them very strongly. And then once we get those two hired, we'll get the budget. We'll have more information on what's happening in terms of the budget and fitting in a project director. So I'm quite happy with the motion that the clerk has on the table, if provided we hire the two as soon as we can.
Okay, Member Minnings.
Thank you through the chair. The the customer service staff person, the new position, who would that support, or do you have a sense right now? Is that going into Director Burke's area? Do you have a sense of that?
Through the chair, I do have a sense of it, but it's not appropriate to share because I need to do some shuffling. So different places will get a little bit with a shuffle, but I don't, until we work that out with the staff, I don't want to share it at this table.
No, thank you. And that's fair. I was just trying to think into future discussion around a project manager and try and envision that future department and how it's resourced. But I'm
by
good
the
with
time
that.
we get there, I'll be able to share that.
Member Cox.
I'm good with, well, it's gone now. I'm good with that one because it's not exactly, but I can live with that one. And I'm going to say something that some people may not like to hear, but we've been at county and they're looking at 5%. Midland's looking at 5%. Collin was looking at 5%, and it's due to the cost of living. Everything is up. And I mean, we are going to have a tough budget. And in Collingwood, they said we'd like to get a 2%, and their CAO and staff said to them, you do that, then you have to cut services and projects. So it's a tough year for budgeting because we all know what the economy is like for people. And I believe that customer service, which all these will help, and our projects to be more efficient are something we probably will do, or we are going to do. But I do want everyone to understand that the days of 0% and 1% pretty much are too tough to try to do unless you want to start sucking your reserves for capital projects all the time. Thank you. And there are municipalities who've done that and they're in a mess. There's one municipality, 24% increase last year they had.
Okay, thank you. So my personal feelings is a modified option 7 with only hiring one person this time, and then we address the rest of the budget. But in that case, if the motion's okay, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote. And if Allison, if we can read the motion again, or is everyone okay to have it moved and second?
I can reread it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so just skip that. Okay, so motion is that the CAO report 2023-06 be received and that staff be directed to proceed under option 7 as amended to hire 2 positions at this time, being the recreation coordinator and customer service staff, and that staff report back in the 2024 budget as to the budget impact of the project manager position prior to hiring. I need a mover in a second.
Can we have a mover for that? Moved by member McIntyre, second by member Cox. Any discussion? If not, we'll ask for the recorded vote.
Okay,
Oh, there's a discussion item for member Minnings.
Based on what you read in the motion, the very last part around the project manager, could you just read that last
certainly.
section?
The last line is that staff report back to the 2024 budget as to the budget impact of the project manager position prior to hiring.
Would that not be prior to approval of creating a new position?
Report back and then
just
they can
on
make
the
a
position.
decision.
Okay, so the last line then is revised, if the rest of council is okay with that. That staff report back to the 2024 budget as the budget impact, as to the budget impact of the project manager position.
So then if it's in the budget and it gets approved, then that's approved.
Are you okay with that, member Minnings? Did you want to put it back up on the screen, Allison, just so we can see it? He's doing that, member Cox.
I think member Minnings is worried that it sounds like we are hiring whether or not. And I think the whole point is that we just need to look at that position at budget time. Am I right? Okay.
Yeah, and to that, I'd like to see prior to approval.
So are you happy with the last sentence there, member Minnings?
Just so the way that works, yeah. So the way this works is that the position has not been approved. The whole thing comes forward back to budget on the project manager position. If council doesn't proceed with the position at that point, then it's just not approved in the budget.
If you put the impact of our project manager, then that sort of clarifies, that might help her.
Okay, so if everyone's okay, we'll ask for the report vote.
Okay, recorded vote requested by Chair Taylor. So Chair Taylor, for or against?
No.
Okay. Member Cox, for or against?
For.
Okay. Member Jansen, for or against?
For.
Okay. Member Burkett, for or against?
For.
Okay. Member Minnings, for or against?
Yes.
Okay. Member Brennan, for or against?
For.
Member McIntyre, for or against?
Yes.
That's 5-2. Motion's carried.
Okay. Do we want a mini break or do you want to continue?
We
Just
can
take a 5-minute break.
quick 5 minutes before we proceed with the other business items.
Thanks. And we'll go to new business, a report from Member Minnings. If you would like to speak to the MTO golf cart pilot program.
Thank you, through the chair. I heard from a resident in Ward 4 last February and regarding a golf cart pilot that the Ministry of Transportation was running in Port Pelee. And this particular individual has a golf cart and uses it occasionally in the neighborhood to get from point A to point B. Very much like other residents who use golf carts or four-wheel drive vehicles, etc. So I knew nothing about it. And I did approach the township in the summer to actually have MTO come here to do a presentation at our meeting. And unfortunately, they had to cancel. And I believe that was in August last month. So going forward, to continue to get information, not just for Ward 4 residents, but across the township, where allowing or licensing golf carts, and the Minister of Transportation actually calls them golf cars. I still would like staff to research and bring that information forward as to whether or not it will work as a pilot or otherwise in my ward, Ward 4, and other areas across the township as an alternate transportation mode that would lend itself well currently and in the future to travel on roadways and multi-vehicle paths, etc. So the pilot, from my understanding, runs from April 1st, I believe, until the end of October annually. So it's not a winter or a 12-month initiative. And currently the ministry's general website shows that it is called a pilot and it is running until the end of 2027. So I'm looking for council to ask staff to research and bring back a recommendation for consideration, especially now as we're going into the fall and winter, that this might be something that would work for our township and our residents in the spring.
Thank you. I don't know, Derek, if you'd like to speak to it, or would you rather have a motion for a staff report?
Through the chair, I think the staff report's a good idea. We've certainly kind of followed along with the MTO's pilot, but yeah, staff could drum up a report to give some advice.
Thank you. If Allison, then
So the motion is that staff report back regarding the MTO golf cart pilot program.
Okay, we've moved there. Moved by Member Minnings, second by Member Jansen. All in favor? And that's carried. Then we'll go to it from the consent agenda D1.3. And I think that was Member Cox.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Derek for doing this, and I don't know if anyone else has any questions on it, but I just thought if I brought it forward, if anybody had any questions or comments, and if not, we can just move on to the next thing. But that's okay.
Madam Clerk, how would we handle this? It's information?
Yeah, it's just a motion to receive the report for information.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a mover for that? Moved by Member Cox, second by Member Jensen. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have D1.8, the abeyance list. And I think that was Member Burkett.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a couple. Can't get it. So there's one in here about Burnside line. I think it needs to be taken out. One about Burnside line. I think that's been done. So that needs to be removed. And also there was one about drainage by over in Featherton, and I'm not sure if that's been addressed, or do we need to remove that as well? I think it's in your ward, Chair.
I think that was related to the subdivision that's going in on the near Highway County Road 16. Go ahead, Member Burke.
Yeah, through the chair. So yeah, the item's still on and doesn't necessarily come off until we either report or are directed to take off the list. However, This particular item was a comment regarding a planning application, but really was more about the existing roadway of Festerton Side Road and some of the aggressive steep slopes that are present on that topography in the area with regards to drainage. So from a maintenance perspective, we continue to action maintenance requests out there. We often do have to perform remediation after a rainfall event because of the slopes. However, we continue to do that. So I don't know if it's necessarily tied to the planning application as much as it was a request for continued maintenance.
Yeah, just to follow up, one of the rain events in May, I was out there and the water was coming down, overflowing two laneways on the north side on Festerton Side Road.
So are we keeping it or pulling it? Can it come off?
Say it again.
So I guess we're just asking if the item can come off the abeyance list if it's more routine maintenance than a.
I don't think it should come off. I think it's still outstanding.
So through the chair, then maybe perhaps a clarification of the intent of the, so it's not necessarily tied to a Planning Act application. There's existing drainage concern, and the drainage design of that day certainly was not the precipitation levels and frequencies, intensity, duration, and rainfall event that we see nowadays. So it's overwhelming the system for sure. We continue to action maintenance items as they come up, but if council wishes to direct staff to report on upgrades to the drainage infrastructure on Festerton Side Road as a capital works project, we could consider that instead.
Because if when the next public meeting is on that development, which is coming sometime, then we'll have the questions going to be coming up about the water coming off that hill. So either what comes first, either we be proactive on this one or be reactive. That's my question. Member Cox, help me out here.
I am. I think what Derek is saying is he's going to put that as a capital project and bring it forward in our budget that needs to be looked at. Is that what you're saying? Or no, did I read it wrong? You just think it should be separate as something to work on? And then that way, when it does come forward for that planning, we can say that we're.
So through the chair, if I can, I think, so in terms of maintenance needs, this isn't near the top of staff's list. That wouldn't be a normal item to be bringing forward for a capital project to upgrade that roadway. Like at this time, for drainage purposes, we recognize that the drainage system out there is, designed at a time when, rainfall intensity and duration weren't as high as they are now. So often, not too often, but, from time to time, it overwhelms the system. We react to that operationally to correct that. And we have done so in the last year or so. But if council was to direct us to add a capital projects list to this to enhance that particular road segment, then we could consider drumming up a project scope for that. But at this time, it's not necessarily related to the Planning Act application.
Member Burkett.
Thank you. Through the chair to Derek. So as part of the planning application and a new subdivision, is the onus not on the developer to somehow remediate if there's any flooding down of our road? Or how does that work?
Through the chair. So it's not necessarily the developer's responsibility to fix existing problems with municipal infrastructure. They will be required to design their on-site stormwater management system to meet the design guidelines that we have set as a township, the design guidelines that are set by the Ministry of Environment and Engineering Good Practices. But to solve an existing township problem is not necessarily in the developer's scope.
Supplementary, if I may, through the chair, but the development that's there, is it causing the chaos on our system? Is it because of that, or is it just because of where it's situated on a hill?
Through the chair, if I can. So it's not necessarily, so the development application hasn't advanced. This is the draft plan approval application for, and our planning group's not here today, but I can't remember the address. That was the subject of the comments from the pre-consult, or sort of the public meeting, the first of two, I believe it is. That's where the source of it. The only other development in the area that has a relationship to this area is Georgian Heights. So Georgian Heights was fully, developed, has a stormwater management plan, has an outlet that isn't Festerton Side Road. It's a very small amount of contributory catchment area that drains towards Festerton Side Road. The rest of it goes to the stormwater management pond.
Okay, supplementary to the chair, if I may. So is this something we should be looking at to member or the chair's comments to alleviate the flooding that happens in a severe rainstorm? Is there a fix through a capital project that you see could fix this if it comes to council at budget?
So through the chair, certainly. I mean, all roads are designed to a certain level of service. We call them frequency duration storms, but like 1 to 5, 1 to 2, 1 to 50, the type of storm event. This is just an older design. Festerton Side Road hasn't been rebuilt in a number of years, and so it has drainage deficiencies. But so do probably a large portion of our existing assets that are in their later stages of life also have drainage deficiencies. It's not something we would have recommended as part of our routine capital plan, but if committee here is interested in that particular road upgrade, we could take direction from council and prepare a capital project for that upgrade. We have a lot of roads that flood out at the 1 to 5 year storm event because they're designed in an older day when some of the drainage infrastructure wasn't as robust as it is now.
Okay, I get where we're going to go here. Is there any way that just the ditching would help this, or is this a whole? Because right now, is that flooding not affecting the integrity of that side road?
So through the chair, if I can, it would be probably a substantial upgrade in infrastructure. The ditching, if you will, isn't just a maintenance item. A maintenance item would be sort of clearing out some debris that settled out, keeping the same diameter size culverts that would go underneath each entrance and the outlet potential and that sort of thing. That's all what the road is designed to do. Maintenance only restores that performance level. It doesn't actually increase the performance level. Some of the challenge here is we have, a aged road profile and drainage corridor that has a significant grade. In a new design, there would be a number of energy attenuation structures, larger diameter culverts, of complete redesign, including the outlet to Matchadash Bay crossing at County Road 16, I guess it is. And those are significant drainage improvement projects, typical of a full reconstruction of that roadway.
Okay, supplemental then, is that something that we could bring to budget, just because you're saying there's other roads that are like that may need to be looked at for future considerations? I'm not asking for you to go out and get pricing for all of them, but I just thought maybe if that is an issue that's affecting the integrity of our roads with the flooding issues, that might be something that we should look at for budget.
And through the chair, if you want to, sorry.
Thank you. Through the chair, I was just going to say, I know Derek is pretty close to the end of his capital plan that you're going to see, but we often have put council's requests on a kind of a separate page of items not funded. And then if council chooses that's a priority and wants to take something off, I think that's maybe the way to handle it. So then it's there. And if you want to make adaptations, you can.
Just my concluding remarks are that if the subdivision goes ahead, this will be mentioned for sure by the residents who are concerned about the water there. And a lot of the issue is the water is coming from Highway 400 and west of Highway 400 and coming down that hill. That's what we're kind of hoping to see, whether there's a cooperation between MTO and us, that's where the bulk of the water is coming from. And Derek can correct me on that.
Through the chair, yeah, it's certainly a natural water course, a large collection right to Tay Township that discharges to this area. It's actually very, very similar to Vasey. So Vasey Road, you'll remember over the years, comes out of the Beechwood area. I think it's called Beechwood, and Gloucester Estates, and floods into. Now the MTO had to do a similar project to what we would have to do here to attenuate those velocities. A number of rock energy attenuation structures and quite a large capital investment in enhancing that drainage infrastructure. So very no different, just one block north. We have the same challenges at Festerton Side Road.
But I don't know whether we leave it on though. I don't see any harm in leaving it on the abeyance list because it's going to come back. I'll let the committee. And what do you think? Never want to leave it on. What's on it, Member Cox?
Yeah, the one, it says it's a verbal from me on the speed limit bylaw and traffic control measures. I think we sort of covered that Corey one in our master transportation plan. So I don't have a problem with that one going. And I hate to, could you fix that poor lady's name on the Kelly's Road one? Sorry, it's Morrow. Morreau. Sorry. And that one's a while ago. So I don't know where that came from. How are we doing with that one? With the encroachment problem issue? Is it still in process or do we talk about it?
Through the chair, yeah, so just a quick update. It is ongoing. We are working with the Ministry of Natural Resources property owner to remove the encroachment, but there's a bit of a process. And
Okay.
so, yeah, we're certainly under
Okay, thank you.
ongoing.
Member Burkett.
Through the chair, just to dare update to report.
Through the chair, yeah. So each one of these has a bit of history to them, and that's hopefully reflected in the update. But it's still under waiting for Hydro One's commitment to project schedule, as well as the response to cost estimate. So as of this week, we still do not have either of those items.
Through the chair, if I may. So I guess it's too late to tender it out this year then? No? Okay.
No, through the chair, kind of as reported a little while ago now, June, our full intent is that the minute we are confident and confirmed with Hydro One's schedule, we're going to release the tender. And then the consultant or the contractors can respond with a fairly long project duration time, just noting that they're unable to work within the Hydro One schedule period of time. So we're hoping to still get some firm pricing for the 24 budget. So when we carry that forward, we have a bit better value to carry into the year.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? If not, Allison, a motion, I guess, as amended.
Yeah, it's just a motion to receive the abeyance list as amended.
Okay, got a mover for that. Moved by Member Burkett, second by Member McIntyre. All in favor? Carried. And now Member Minnings had 2.4 selected there.
Thank you. Through the chair, you'll see in your package that there is a letter from Hope Community Church. I'm just calling it up here. And they are in the process of fundraising for a multi-purpose sports field that would include basketball, soccer, and a paved skating rink that would allow for tennis, pickleball courts, etc. And I just wanted to provide some background information in consideration of their request to support funding of this great initiative. So in Ward 4 and specifically in Cumberland Beach, Hope Community Church is the only building structure that we have as a community of residents to use for a variety of things. So just to give you a small list of what they've done over the last years is a community garden. The COVID Vax Clinic, I hosted that there. It was maxed out at 400 vaccinations. Community meetings with the township have been held there, annual general meetings, ratepayers groups, etc. Our twice annual Santa Claus parade facility and floats, and we'll do our third one this year. It's the only spot for Severn Shores Elementary School for drop-off and pickup of kids from parents, as the school's parking lot is closed to cars during drop-off and pick-up times. And as you'll know, we've eliminated on-street parking there. So they've been a great asset for everyone. They also donate their space to the Good Food Box. Halloween with the Severn Township Fire Department there is a big community event that the whole community, 400 families last year go to before they go out trick-or-treating, Easter egg hunt, spillover for recess for kids in their field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to say too much more, but they are someone that the community has come to use and be very familiar with, not just using their lands, but their building too. So the details are in the letter that I will tell you. I was at their community corn roast dinner the weekend. Anyway, so I was there 3 weeks ago, and on September 12th, on the Wednesday before, Tuesday before, I attended our Culture and Rec Committee meeting. And one of the agenda items at our meeting was on a report to the Culture and Rec Committee on the multi sports fields that were going in the township in Marchmont, Washego, and Coldwater, to the tune of $700,000. And there was some grant money there too, but council had $711,000 in their budget for that. So when I was at the community corn roast and I saw this information, something similar to it, on their bulletin board, I immediately thought of the township providing very similar things for a much higher cost to 3 other communities in the township. So I'll get through what I want to say. I know. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was just distracted. So I contacted the pastor and asked him to tell me a little bit more about what they were doing, and he shared much of the information here. I then contacted the township, the clerk, and asked if there was a way that I could bring this information and my encouragement of their requesting some modest funding to council, and she advised that hope to submit this letter. Now, I will tell you that since the letter was written just a week or so ago, that they did have their second last fundraiser event. It was their golf tournament, and they raised approximately, although the final numbers aren't in, $9,000. And so they have continuously gone outside of the township. They're not eligible for grants because of our grants don't allow for any religious affiliations. But if they were to ever put up a gate, which I don't ever see, but you can imagine the loss to this whole community of families that has been there for several years and enjoyed everything they have to do. So it's exciting for me to know that the kids can go somewhere and skate, walking, carrying their skates. The lake does not have a skating pad on it that the township assists with. There are many private ones. I have spoken to our director about that, but it's on his list maybe for a future conversation. And the local Weber's Starbucks has a large NHL size hockey rink, but again, no one from Cumberland Beach can get to it without going on the highway. So I'm here to advocate on their behalf. And they've provided on page 1 at the bottom a list of a bit of a laundry list of things and how they're broken down. The township of Oromadonte did donate all the hockey boards from their old ice rink to them. So it's going to be a full-sized ice rink, and it's open to everyone. So I'm looking to my colleagues to have a discussion on this request, to perhaps consider donating some money towards this great initiative. I would like to see this happen. I would like to see it happen sooner rather than later. The paving company has given them a 50% credit for as an in-kind donation, and there's still an opportunity to get at least the ice rink done, perhaps this year, perhaps. So I know that's all I know about it. But I'm here to ask council if we might sponsor one or two of the items that they've listed to get them closer to completing this, which we will all benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Member Cox had a sign up, and then Member McIntyre, did I see you? Okay, thanks.
Well, I just wanted to say that the sports courts are totally funded from a provincial and federal grant. It wasn't out of our budget. So I just wanted to let you know, yeah, they were all funded because that was a grant that came up 2019. I think it was something like that they decided to do that.
Thank you. Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. Good project. They do a lot. There's not much else going on in that community. I'd be in support of maybe paying one of these wish lists that they've got at the bottom, not the top one for sure. But, you know, they're putting out a good effort, and they raise their own, through their own devices, they raise a great deal of money. He didn't ask for any specific. The pastor didn't say in the letter. Perhaps that was because he still had the golf tournament to follow after the letter. So he's at about 31,000 by my count. If he got 9,000 for the golf tournament, so maybe one, maybe two of the wish list. I wouldn't be opposed to supporting that for that community.
Member Burkett, thank you.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Member Minnings, for that. We have to be very careful. This is a religious organization, and not everyone in our township, and we're dealing with public funds, would be in favor of us as a council giving. And I'd be first in line if I thought that we could do something like that. Pastor Steve is a great man. He's done wonderful things for the West Shore community, and he continues to do wonderful things, but I cannot support funding him through monies that are here, that are public, and through the township. And I honestly think it's a no-no. We can't support a church. I don't think we can.
Member Cox.
Yeah, I have to agree on that one. With our grant money, we definitely don't fund religious or education or team things, and I think it's just a slippery slope, unfortunately.
But my comment there is this. I'll let Lori speak for me, please.
I was, through the chair, I was just going to add a bit of another wrinkle. It's unfortunate that they didn't actually chat with us before they went down this path, because they're going to need a site plan agreement, which I'm fairly sure they should have been aware of, because we've been down this road with this particular organization. So unfortunately, they've opened the door that now we know about it. So we're going to have to follow up with them and talk to them about site plan. So in addition to the challenge of funding a religious organization, which you can, but our policy specifically excludes it for a very good reason. We keep church and state separate, and that's typically a municipal thing. So.
I was just saying, even though it is a religious organization, it appears it's fully open to the public and used by the public. So that's just my comment. Member Minnings.
Thank you. And thank you for clarification about what we're allowed to fund and what we're not allowed to fund. So we are allowed to fund this. Where it's not allowed is through our grant applications. But that's what it is. And I realize that Ward 4 has very limited sports and recreation facilities. Actually, we have zero. Well, it's coming, but I've been here 7 years in this community, and that's how I started and got to this seat, because it's coming and it is tiring, and it is something that we don't have to pay for. I wasn't here in 2019 when this grant money was split among 3 other communities, and I'd love to know how Cumberland Beach and Ward 4 was eliminated from benefiting from over $700,000 of grant money. That actually bit of information makes me furious. And I think no, I'm just saying that I'm not interested in that history, but now that I know it, I'm trying to move forward. And I think that there are ways. Oro-Medonte had some nets. There's certainly something, and I think that we can do for this this community. There, it's not a church initiative. In fact, you don't even have to go into the building. And that's how we've always, I've always interacted with them over the past 7 years. I have my own church and my own religion, and it hasn't been an issue. So I'm very aware of church and state. However, the one other thing that I will say, because if we can't provide them with something, I think that would be, I think that would be a big disappointment, not just from me, but from all the other Ward 4 residents who are listening to this conversation. Regarding church and state, I have enjoyed getting to know Coldwater since I've been on council and participating in the parades, etc. We were just talking about the Witches Walk that's upcoming, and I know there's several businesses on the street and members of the BIA, etc., that are not of a spiritual or an anti-spiritual nature too. So I don't want to go down that slope. But we're not asking for pews or for crosses or for books for their church. We're asking for something so that the kids have somewhere to go, like maybe some basketball nets or hockey nets. And I'll just leave it at that, and council can decide how they choose to.
Okay, I think Member Cox, you had your, no, okay. Member Burkett.
Thank you. Thank you through the chair. And I think we've opened a Pandora's box, Member Minnings. They're going to need a site plan. And I'd be more in favor of, if we could, forgive whatever costs for the site plan rather than try and contribute money. And I don't know if that's possible or not. Like I'm speaking openly here, but now they're going to have to wait and come to the planning department to have a site plan done, and I'm not sure what that's going to cost. But as far as donating monies, I'd be first in line. If I thought we could give them the monies, I'd be right there. I know what Pastor Steve and his organization does for West Shore. Fully supportive. The man's an angel, but I can't give to a religious organization. I think it will come back and bite us.
Do we want to put a motion that we would go to budget? Is that in the thing, or what's the consensus on that?
Let's just see. Let's just see, Chair, if it even passes, if there's a flavor to even give something.
Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't aware of the fact that I didn't look at this picture as being it's the church. I looked at it as the community having a need. I still see that need. However, CAO has made it clear that, and the Member Burkett, that if we side here, we got to side with everyone else. I hate to rescind my support, however, Wanda, but we don't need to get involved in all of that in other communities. If it's the church putting up a rink or having some kind of a fair that we are giving money to. So I think we should just call the question now that we have more information. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Brennan.
Yeah, I'm with the mayor and with Councillor McIntyre. I actually, it's good to know about this religious thing. I didn't know anything about it, but it's not just a religious thing, I guess. It's interesting. I'm just looking at my community center is Otis Park. It's the cheapest one you own, by the way. But but I know there's a lot of big challenges there with us trying to help them with events. They get very frustrated too. It's not religious, but I'm thinking when the grants came through in 19, I don't recall that when that came through council, but weren't they all municipally owned parks that those grants were for? Like they weren't for a private or religious group. I don't know if that was part of the bidding process or not. I don't know. I'm just thinking though that if there's one thing that seems consistent, it's our land that's involved in it.
Okay, Madam CEO.
I think maybe Councillor Minning's question was why West Shore wasn't considered. And at the time, it was a solely council driven. It was when we were looking at applying for the West Shore Community Center grant, which you'll remember the challenges that we had in that process. And a council member brought a very specific request for specific grants. So that's how it was decided, was at the council table.
Member Cox.
And unfortunately, it was suggested for West Shore, but it wasn't ready yet because it needed all that fill and all that work. And we didn't know the pandemic was coming that would put it off until now. We had kind of thought it was going to happen in 2020, but it didn't. But it wasn't ready because we asked about it. The other members did, and they said no because it wasn't ready to be put in there. So we couldn't do that, and we'd have to do it in the future, where we're crossing our fingers that maybe this fall that grant will come back again.
Okay. Do we have a motion there? First of all, Madam CEO.
Yeah, I guess someone needs to propose something. Like, are you maybe Councillor Minnings, like, are you looking for a dollar amount? So you need to put it on the table. So we don't know what the motion is and that council is going to vote on.
Yeah, I'd ask Member Minnings, what would you like in the motion, Wanda? Basketball.
Yeah, so, okay, I'm going to, for what's in front of us here from the church, I would put basketball nets then as what we'll vote on. And then I have a question, supplemental. Yes. Then if we were to look at future development charges, et cetera, that would be something that would be brought forward in the, at a future meeting, if there were charges now that they're facing to create a site plan. Okay, whatever Member Burkett mentioned.
Okay, Madam CEO, and then Member Brennan.
I think if council is interested in waiving any site plan fees that might be applicable, you maybe want two separate motions, because I'm not sure the first one is going to pass, but if you wanted to make a second motion to say if there are any site plan fees, council will waive them. That's not the right words, but so do one first and then get to the other. You can certainly do that here. You don't need to wait. And honestly, it might be a nice gesture, because we're going to have to follow up this letter and say, and in addition, you need a site plan. But if we can't do A, we will help you with B.
No, thank you. I appreciate the second motion also.
Okay, Member Brennan.
Yeah, I was kind of going the same way. Maybe a motion where we support. I mean, they're doing great stuff. There's no question about that. And any opportunity to support them would be great. But it sounds like that has to be in lieu of cash, non-monetary, more or less. So I think the second option you're talking about, frankly, fits the bill based on our policy. So,
Member Jansen.
I'm not sure if the first motion, given the discussion that we've had, is in order. If we're not allowed to provide to religious organizations, I would be in support of the services in kind for the planning, and maybe the possible exploration of if there are any in kind products we could help or provide to assist them, like the Township of Oro-Medonte did with the retired hockey boards.
Madam CEO.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, it's not that it's not allowed. Council feels not comfortable with it for a variety of reasons, I think. So, but Councillor Jansen raises a good point. Do you want to have a motion that's probably not going to pass, or do you want to take a positive approach on, you can have both, and that's up to Councillor Minnings, but just let Allison know what you're looking for.
I'll let Member Minnings say, what do you think there, Wanda?
Thank you so much for continuing to clarify this. It's and I do understand how everyone feels about this, and so that's not even the discussion. I would like it to go for a vote for the $5,500 for the basketball nets. It may or may not pass, but I do understand from your clarification that we are allowed to consider funding that. And I do understand that it is not maybe something that we have approved in the past for various reasons. But I would like to still have the vote on that because that's something that's allowed. So yes.
Okay, so this is the first of two motions then, Allison?
Yes, so the first motion reads that correspondence from the Hope Community Christian Church regarding a request for funding be received, and that the township provide funding towards the purchase of basketball nets in the amount of $5,500.
We have a mover for that, please. Moved by Member Minnings, and I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the motion's defeated.
Okay, we have the second motion.
Okay. The motion is that the Township of Severn waives the Hope Community Christian Church planning application fees for the required site plan application.
We have a mover for that, please. Moved by Member McIntyre, second by Member Brennan. All in favor? That one's carried. Okay. Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you, Member Jansen. Okay, we're going to jump into committee updates, and if it's okay, we'll start at the far end. Ward 5, Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have very much to report other than it's not a committee matter. However, it's the Washago construction is going nicely in the park, and I anticipate it to be done probably on time. Otherwise, that's just about all I got.
Thank you, Member Minnings.
Thank you. I have a few updates on behalf of the Aurelia Public Library, of which I sit on, and some exciting news, and it's actually quite groundbreaking across Ontario, is that the Aurelia Public Library has a social worker on staff, and they ran that social worker position all of last year very successfully. Now they have they've expanded it. It is now, they're called a community outreach worker, and the new staff that's taking over an expanded portfolio began on September 18th. And that is a key position because people who do come into the library and the library building are often experiencing homelessness, not having identification, release from jail, etc., and needing help navigating a number of things, including education and other services across the community. And it's been so impactful in terms of vulnerable populations, not just in the Aurelia community, but into our townships also, that an article was published on it recently in the Ontario Library Association magazine, and other townships, including the ones just north of us and some from the city, have started visiting the library to see how that works out on the ground. So just a really great initiative of the library. I will tell you that the library has an excellent display on Truth and Reconciliation. I was there the other day, and walking into the building, they have really high level of quality banners and information and resources. They had two screenings last night of a movie on Orange Shirt Day that were well attended to. They also have a makerspace that I'm encouraged to get the word out, and many other things, speaker or author visits, etc. And just a final note, I know Member Brennan is on the recruitment committee, but the physician gala that will be happening is going to be taking place at the Aurelia Library because it's such a beautiful building. Thank you.
Sorry, through the chair, just before I move on.
Yeah, sure, Madam CEO.
I just wanted to remind you all that we have a closed session after this because I see you all packing up.
I know, and I always do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's verbal.
It is verbal,
Yeah.
but I just, I feel like that there's going to be a
No, no,
mass
no.
exit.
Yeah.
No, I just thought I don't need
Sorry
this.
to interrupt.
Yeah, yeah, but the chair's not going anywhere.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Madam Cox, Member Cox.
All I have is the library.
And our membership with the Aurelia Library as of September the 1st, 2023 is 1,069 adults, 244 Severn children, and 39 youth, and e-access 57. Our numbers at the Severn Township Library in Coldwater, we had the highest number of borrowers in the last 2 years this past August. We also have a new thing we're doing, and it's called Try It Before You Buy It. And some people have donated different things like, I'm trying to think of what she had, but some people have donated like an appliance. So you can take that home and try it. And if you like it, then you go buy it. Or if there's children's toys, they have all different things. It's very unique. I thought it was kind of cool. So other than that, that's it for me. It was my only meeting.
Thank you. I have just two items. Severn Sound Environmental Association. Once again, we're hosting the second of 3 webinars tomorrow. That's Thursday between 1 and 2. And this session will be on aggregate approval. And once again, I'd like to thank Member Brennan for setting this up with your work and contacts there. And the second item, Coldwater Mill, I've been very busy. We had our AGM on September 21st last week. I recapped 2022 and some plans that were halfway or 3/4 through 2023. And last night, they were hosts to the Business After 5 in conjunction with Segbay, and was a very nice turnout, well attended. And we found out last night that this Sunday night at the mill, it's a comedy night, and it's a do-it-yourself comedy tour from 8 to 9:30, and tickets are available online, $20 a person or $35 for 2.
Outside the
In the mill upstairs.
Oh, upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Member Brennan.
Rocket. Yeah, 2 committees to report on. So the Aurelian District Agricultural Society, upcoming events. We've just completed the fall fair. Halloween dance coming up on the 28th of October, and they have their slaughterhouse going again this year. You don't want to miss that.
Maybe we should go.
Video dance on December 10th. Apparently 90s video dances are like just guaranteed cash. There's a craft show November 4th. New Year's dance December 31st. They're doing Winterfest again this year on February 10th. So, and I mentioned the New Year's dance. Lots going on for the community, good stuff. And they're always looking for volunteers because they're just burning themselves out from what I can see. Other committee, the newly named Aurelian Area Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee. You'll be getting a written report soon from Dr. Miller, but just it's working. Let me just give you an example. From January 1st to September 30th, we recruited a new obstetrician gynecologist, 2 new emergency room physicians, a psychiatrist, an orthopedic surgeon, and 4 family physicians.
Wow.
So it's pretty impressive. Active recruitments are underway. They include looking for hospitalists, emergency people, geriatricians. I guess I could use one of those. Respirologists, an general internal medicine person, whatever they do, ear, nose, and throat, and psychiatry. They're currently working on 4 new strong candidates for family medicine. So this committee's rocking. I'm really proud to be a member of it. And I know we donate at the current time $20,000 a year. We're getting our money's worth as far as I can see. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Burkett.
Thank you through the chair to Member Brennan. When are they doing the pies again at Otis Park? I'm almost out. Anyways, let me know.
Sorry, I'm not up on the pies.
Okay.
I'll find out.
All right. Thank you.
Slaughterhouse will tell me.
Okay. So I sit on the bursary committee at the county. I read 261 resumes. My God. And it's quite interesting. There's 4 members that sit on that committee and 3 new members. I've sat on it for 2 terms now, but it's quite interesting how like Oromadonte had 32 applicants. And when when we sat down, we actually, between the four of us, we'd have the same number. It's amazing how it works when you start reading. Anyways, I sit on that committee. And yesterday, I had an opportunity to sit with our new economic development consultants, not as the mayor, as a business owner. And there were probably half a dozen other business owners there. It was a real good discussion. And those findings will come back to us. But it was a good night. And I just want to thank Lori and Tracy, who were both there right until the end, to in the background, just listening. But thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll ask CEO for any updates, Lori.
Sure, I'll be quick because I sense restlessness. But I just wanted to follow up on the mayor. The economic development strategy is well underway. There is currently 4 focus groups. So there was 2 yesterday, different communities. The first one was the building community. The second one was small business. Today is tourism and arts and culture, I believe. So 4 targeted focus groups. They are meeting individually with each member of council and each member of senior staff. There's a survey out to the public, and I was actually really interested. So I attended the Business After 5 event last night and watched the consultant introduce himself to local business person. So he's getting the flavor. So I was really happy to see that. He just tagged along and started shaking hands. So he's really getting a flavor of the pulse. So I think they're going to do a really great job for us. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we're going to have a motion to go into closed session.
Yes, the motion reads that committee resolve in a closed session and that the meeting is hereby now closed to the public pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, Section 2392, for the purpose of considering personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
We have a mover for that. Moved by Member McIntyre, second by Member Cox. All in favor? That's carried. And turn the mics off.
Yeah, give me one. I gotta. at 12:41 p.m.
Mover for that, please. Moved by member Buchan, second by member Mannings, all in favor, carried.
Okay, and just motion to adjourn.
Motion to, moved by member McIntyre, second by member Mannings, all in favor. Meeting's over.
Thank you.
If you're not free, Mike, we can juggle your time.